It takes a little more than belief to execute goals like Al Spazzeri or young Mark. You've got to have courage, and you're going to need an abundance of courage. Annie Danaka tells us a beautiful story from Portland, Oregon. You're going to have a lot of people against you, some of the people that you thought were your friends and loved ones. And they're going to try and hold you back. And it's going to be sheer guts, courage that'll keep you going. Al did it, Mark did it, Annie Danaka did it, and so can you. Listen to this.
Now, you've got to have courage tacked on the idea. In the vernacular, it takes a lot of guts. We were fortunate enough to have Paul Hutsey share his experience with us yesterday. You know, in that same meeting that I met Paul Hutsey in, I was living in L.A. at the time, and I had come into Toronto to work the conventions for that company. There was another gentleman, and that man changed right in the meeting. He changed right in the meeting. He went back. He lived in a neighboring town to Paul. I believe he was in Hutchinson, Kansas. At that time, Paul was in Wichita. And I remember Paul telling me one day, he said, you know, he changed so much, he appeared to be phony. He said, I almost told him. But he said he never changed back. Well, I was out working in Paul's company. I was working up and down the west coast of the United States. I was in Portland, Oregon. And there was a young lady in the seminar there, and I'm going to tell you, she had her act put together. You could say she had her head screwed on right. Physically, she was quite an attractive lady. She did some of the work that you do, Scott. She worked on stage. She did commercials. She raced cars. I'm talking about those great big long things with little wheels on one end and big ones on the other to go about 5,000 miles an hour for a second or two. You know? And she won the races. She was a salesperson in Paul's company, and she did very, very well. Her name was Annie Danaka. The following Christmas, Annie sent me a calendar. And on each month was a beautiful philosophical quotation contained beautiful truths about life. Rather than write to her, I gave her a call and thanked her for it. One thing led to another, and we got around to the point of talking about something John was talking to young Mark about. He was saying some of your peers are going to attempt to knock you off course. Well, I would go so far to say, Mark, that many of your peers are going to attempt to knock you off course. As you go to execute this big idea, understand not only do you have to adapt to the new idea, but the people around you are going to have to adapt to your new idea if they're going to accept you in their life. And it's highly unlikely that they are going to adapt. To see the people you've been associating up to now, they've been earning $18,000 a year, Al. And I would imagine some of those people probably have quit talking to you. Yeah? Marge's sitting there, his wife, saying, yeah, that's right. Yeah, they've quit talking to us. I experienced this. When my income took off, some people I thought were my friends quit talking to me. Of course, you're earning this money. What are you going to do with it? Well, I like spending it. My wife gets a bigger kick out of it than I do, but you buy a nice new car. They say, oh, you're a big shot now. And, of course, you probably want to live in a nice new home. What was the matter with the old one? Not good enough for you? You've got to be prepared for this, and you've got to develop mental strength, because I'm going to tell you, at first it hurts. It bothers you. They try and pull you back to where they are. Annie was telling me about a time she went down on a call for a play, and she went with a couple of her, what she thought were her girlfriends. She got the leading role in the play, and the friends didn't even get in the supporting cast. I have never been in a play, but my daughter has, and one that Scott was musical director of, and I watched them rehearse. I went over and I got to know the cast. And they work hard. They work long hours. This is before it ever goes on stage. I mean, they start early in the morning, they go to late at night. They may do this for weeks on end. Then just to find you got to rewrite this section, you got to learn it all over again. New energy has to be put into it. It's tough, grueling work. There's no audience there to give you applause. There's nobody there but the director, the producer, the critique what you're doing and say, that's not good enough, do it again, you know, do it different, do it better. It can be a little disheartening. Opening night is a big night. Big night. Now, I know that intellectually. I don't really know it emotionally because I've never been in a play. But I watched them, and they were excited. And, of course, afterwards, there's a party for the cast. Because Colleen happened to be in this one, I was invited to the party, and I was standing watching them. And they were so enthused. They were excited. I mean, big deal. Well, opening night of Anne's play, her girlfriends didn't come out to support her. And that's usually a time, I know that one that I'm referring to was Scott, that Colleen was in. There were members of the cast where their families flew in from the United States. Yours did, as a matter of fact, Scott. I met his mother and his sister. In fact, I had breakfast with them after. They had flown in from Colorado. Another chap had his family flow in from Alberta. They come out to support them on opening night. Well, these girls never even come out to support Anne, and it bothered her. It really bothered her. And she was talking to an old friend of her dad who has since passed away. His name was Hap. Hap wrote her this letter. She told me about it. She said, I'll send you a copy of it. I've given it to a few people. On occasion, she says, you can have permission to use it in the seminar. It is a classic. It is a classic. Now, as I read this, I want you to keep this in mind. As you take that new idea and you make up your mind you're going to go right to the goal, you're not going to be part of the 80%, you're going to be the 20%. And you want to remember this, Mark, don't let those kids pull you down. They're on the wrong track. And you make up your mind you're going to execute this regardless of what anybody says. Hap said, Dear Anne, once upon a time there was a fellow by the name of Al Cap who wrote a comic strip called Lil Abner. Many years ago he had some characters in the strip who lived in a town near Dogpatch. They were the town bums, the ne'er-do-wells, the failures whose whole aim in life was to pass judgment on others. Their criticism and ridicule became so vehement that in time, the rest of the people in town became acutely conscious of it. The boys down at the stable, as they were called, because that's where they spent most of their time, soon set the social standards for the whole town. Nobody could do anything without their sanction. Because they lived within the structure of their crummy little world, they would laugh and point their finger at anyone and everyone who tried to be better than he was. As a result, the people feared the ridicule of the boys down at the stable so much so that they stopped trying. Soon everybody became bums, and the whole town died. He said, in every social structure, Anne, whether it's family, town, country, or state, there are the boys down at the stable. They're the jealous ones. They're too scared to try something different, and they show their ignorance by laughing at those who do. Learn to recognize the men for what they are, and don't let them hurt you. It takes a certain amount of toughness in here to succeed. One has to rise above those who would tear you down so that they can laugh and say, I told you so. There's too many of us who love you and want you to make it, and I can put myself right at the top of the list. You aren't going to fall flat on your face as they would have you. You're going to do a superb job. Remember, this show is only one small step in the direction of greater things you will do, many of which are beyond your wildest dreams. One of the things I like about you best is that you always give it hell for try. The show will be a success because of you and others like you who try. There are only winners in the cast. The losers are gathered down at the stable, laughing and hoping for our failure. If we could dig down deep inside of them, I'm sure we'd find that they would like to win also, but they're too scared to try. And they attempt to cover up their own failures as human beings by laughing at others. In a sense, I'm sorry for them. Their guilt must make them very unhappy people. Much love and give them hell, Hap. What a letter. I wished I had known him. I can relate to this very, very well because I spent half my life as one of the boys down at the stable. Then I was fortunate, like that elderly couple, I had somebody knock on my door and show me how to turn in a bigger bulb, illuminate my life to a greater degree. And I experienced people like this. You see, what I did was I relate back, how did I react to these people? I reacted the same way. And I had to recognize, yeah, I was jealous. I was jealous. I was cynical. And I would point my finger and laugh at anybody who tried to be better. You'd never find me in one of these at that time. Now, this idea and expectation that John was referring to, I have come to the conclusion that as you study the laws of your being, that giving and receiving is one of the laws. It's the action-reaction where John was using a little dynaswing. And I found out as you give, you learn how to receive. And the more you give, the more you receive. And that's just the way it works. And as you get that law firmly planted in your mind, and you really understand the significance behind this power, then it becomes simple and, in fact, natural to expect good things. Because you know how it works. You expect your car to run when you turn the key. And if it doesn't, you know there's a little problem. And if there's a signal comes to you that there's a problem, let's say a red light goes on in the dash, you don't take a screwdriver and knock the red light out of the dash and keep driving. That's a signal telling you there's something wrong. You correct what's wrong. If we see a signal on our results, there's got to be a correction made in here. Let's go inside, get under the hood. As I mentioned a moment ago, we were fortunate enough to have Paul here yesterday. I'm going to ask Paul to come back down here. Now, Paul, maybe we could just stand over here, all right? Now, I asked Paul to come down for a reason. John and I come up with an idea some time ago, and we've been working on this idea for a long time. Last night, having dinner with Paul, Paul talked about changing the number 2 to a candle, because it represented light, and light comes from inside. And I got thinking about this, and I was thinking of a quote that I guess you could say both John and I fell in love with quite a long time ago. And the quote kept playing on our mind and playing on our mind, and so we decided to develop an idea around it. And it is it's actually not a quote, it's an epitaph that Theodore Roosevelt wrote many, many years ago for his son, who had passed away or died in battle 6 months before his own death. And Roosevelt said, "Only those are fit to live who do not fear to die, and none are fit to die who have shrunk from the joy of life. Both life and death are parts of the same great adventure." He said, all of us who provide service and stand ready for sacrifice are the torchbearers. We run with the torches until we fall, content if we can pass them to the hands of the other runners. Let me review part of it. He says, all of us who provide service. I think Paul provides a lot of service. I don't think he does. I know he does. And if you go throughout Texas, Missouri, Louisiana, Kansas, you're going to say, hundreds of people, they'll say, yeah, Hutsy sure does provide a lot of service. And then he said, and stand ready for sacrifice. Well, you know, he's already told us he's got 60 salespeople down there. He's got 8 managers. He's got 5 kids. He's got 19 grandkids. He's got a wife that's just a beautiful lady. And, yeah. I don't think he has to look for something to do on a weekend. When I asked Paul if he'd come up and share his experience with you and with all the people that are watching this, sitting in their home or at work, he didn't even say, let me think about it. He just said, sure, I'd be glad to. You know. Now, you know, most of us look at sacrifice as losing something. The true meaning of sacrifice is giving up something of a lower nature to receive something of a higher nature. I don't know what Paul would have done this weekend, but I do know last night he said, boy, that was just a great day. He said, what a great audience. He said, I had a wonderful time. So he gave up something of a lower nature. He received something of a higher nature. Now, John and I had an idea some time ago, And we had someone design and make a little pin out of gold. Now, it's a little gold pin. It has a wreath. It has a hand holding a torch. It's a torchbearer's pin. And we had decided we would make a lot of people torchbearers, show them that there is compensation in service and sacrifice. And we only had 2 of these pins made, one for John and one for myself. But we thought the first guy that we should make a torchbearer is Paul Hutsey. You know? Right here.
This is the only one we got left. So,
isn't that nice? See how fast you get it back when you give it out? And I'm going to tell you, that was spontaneous. We were talking last night, and I said the only time you give is when you don't think about it. It's just automatic. It's got to be spontaneous. You have to think about it. You're trading. I know that John didn't even know I was going to do that. We talked about making Paul the first torchbearer, but he didn't know I was going to do that then, nor did I know he was going to do that. Now, you get locked into this idea. What you want to do is fall in love with what you do. The results you get are the compensation you receive for what you do. Now, there's a difference between expecting something and wanting it. Don't see this as a difficult task. On page 33, what I want to suggest you do is take and write down the left-hand side of page 33, about every 3rd line. Put family life right at the top on the left-hand side. Right on the left-hand side of the page down here, on the first line, put family life. Drop down 2 or 3 lines, put social life. Come down 2 or 3 more lines, staying on the left-hand side, put business life. Come down a little further and put income. Come down a little further and write health. Now, they're just some suggestions of areas of your life. I want to suggest you pick out some more and then ask yourself, have I just been wanting these because wants are here in the consciousness? Expectation is in here. And you can want things, you can see them, and you can have them in your consciousness. If you don't plan them in here, you're not going to get them. And I want you to take some time and really think about that. And don't just pass this lesson over and go on and do whatever you're going to do. This is the lesson. It's important that you get in. This is how you get yourself involved. You develop the understanding. It motivates the action, which changes the results. And that's what we said. It's the understanding and application. On page 34, quote at the top of the page, I believe John did that much better than I could do it here with young Mark over here. So desire is the effort of the unexpressed possibility within, seeking expression without, through your action. It's the idea that's cooking in every cell of our being. It's the act that's bubbling under. There's something inside wanting us to go out and do. It's the idea wanting to be expressed. And don't be disheartened if it doesn't happen when you think it's supposed to happen. John mentioned yesterday there's a season for sowing and there's a season for reaping, but you never do both in the same season. When you plant the seed, understand that the idea is a non-physical seed, but it's every bit the same as a physical seed that you plant in the ground. Recently, we were having some work done around our house. There was a strip that we had filled in. It was a bit of a ditch. We had it filled in, and we were going to have it sodded. And the gentleman that was working on it, he said, you know, he said, this is an excellent time of year to seed. He said it would come through in a week. I said, really? He said, it'd be a lot less work and an awful lot less expensive. I said, go ahead and seed it. And in a week, bang, that grass was out there. It took a week for that seed. That's called the gestation or an incubation period, and that's governed by one of the natural laws of the universe called the law of gender. All seeds have a gestation or an incubation period. I believe the seed for a baby is about 280 days. I've never seen a man coming home after the young lady's gone to the doctor, and she come home and she says, darling, blessed event's going to take place. 90 days later he comes home and he says, well, where is it? Oh, it isn't going to work. No. It's like James Allen said, we wait as one who understands. When spirit rises and commands, God is ready to obey. There's a gestation period. You plant a seed for a carrot. I understand it takes 70 days. We have gained a conscious understanding of what the gestation period is for almost all physical seeds. But remember yesterday we were talking about the water and the steam and the ether, and we were talking about the only difference between the physical and the non-physical is in density or amplitude of vibration. It's exactly the same. Well, keep in mind that an idea is exactly the same as the physical seed. It's exactly, it only appears different to one of these things we call our sensory factor. But it's exactly the same, and it's governed by exactly the same law. The non-physical world and the physical world are all governed by the same law because it's the same world. It's the opposite side of the same thing. But you cannot see that with your sensory factors. You've got to see it with an inner eye of understanding. On page 34 we say, in other words, your idea, your dream or goal can only be desired once it has been properly planted in this creative universal intelligence. And we suggested how you do that. You do that through constant spaced repetition, and you do it in a totally relaxed state. I don't think you write very good music, Scott, when you're uptight and things are bothering you and you got real pressing problems. You see, tension tires, relaxation rests and renews. Relaxation opens the chakras and lets the power flow freely through you. And that's really what you are as a channel. Use your relaxation, your visualization tape. You say, however, once your desire has been firmly established, it is the expectant attitude that ensures your goal or dream is not uprooted or replaced by any opposing idea. You see, when you understand how this power works and your conscious relationship to it, you're not going to be knocked off track by circumstance because you are expecting the right thing to happen. Like Paul Hutsey said, he said, I found the 10-acre lot because I was looking for the 10-acre lot. Most people don't expect it. They just think because they've changed vocations, they've changed towns, they've changed spouses, they've changed clothes, they've changed cars, that everything's going to happen. You don't change the kitchen by painting the outside of the house. If you want your results to change permanently and dramatically, you've got to change them inside. Now we're on page 34. Therefore, it is imperative that you understand the following 3 points from Genevieve Brevan's phenomenal book, Your Invisible Power, John was working with earlier. For they will help you to develop the understanding you need to form the expectant attitude. Now, let's take a look at these 3 points. All space is filled with a creative power. It's not just inside, it's like we said earlier, it's everywhere. This creative power is amenable to suggestion. You create the idea, and as you get emotionally involved in it, you've placed it in the universe, and the entire universe comes to your beck and call. Such a phenomenal idea for us to grasp. We say the creative power only works by deductive methods. John covered that early yesterday. What do we mean by that? Deductive methods. It only has the ability to accept the idea and move it into all its necessary parts for the manifestation of the idea. It has no ability to add one fact, one idea, one thought. It cannot add anything to it. It's like a mold. What you pour in, that's what you get back. This creative power only works by deductive methods. You build the picture, I'm telling you, just think about it. You can build a picture in your mind, you turn it over, and that's the way your life starts to go. The same way the architect designs the building, the same way you design how your table is going to be set, the same way you design how to make that dress, the same way you design how to make that table, the same way Paul designed the way he wanted his house, you can design your life. All aspects of it. And it works by exactly the same law. Now, Thomas Troward in his writing emphasized this last point because it implies that the action of this ever-present creative power is in no way limited by precedent or what has gone on before. What do we mean by that? Well, I'll tell you exactly what we mean by it. Your present or past results have absolutely nothing to do with what's going to happen from this point forward. Now, that was the point that Ray Stanford drilled into my head. You see, I kept thinking, well, gee, I'm such a mess up. You know, I've done everything wrong up till now. I'm 26. I'm broke. I'm not happy. Everything was wrong. He said, Bob, that's all in the past. He said, every moment is a new moment. We shouldn't condemn ourselves. And he said, what you were yesterday, you paid for. What you are today, you decide upon. That's exactly what Troward's saying. This power in no way is limited by precedent. Even in a creative state, we sometimes don't understand that. Do you know why airplanes, right up to today almost, have wings on them? Because birds have wings. Birds fly, they have wings. If you're going to get a plane to fly, you've got to put wings on it. Do you? No. We've got planes flying without wings today. You know why? Never did need wings. But you see, the thinking was, to a degree, limited by precedent. Birds fly with wings. Planes have to have wings. Planes do not have to have wings. You're creative. If you can visualize it, you can do it. It doesn't matter what it is. That's what Hill said. Anything the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Said in other words, this universal creative power creates a creative direction from the idea or image that you impress upon it. It's just sitting there and it's waiting and saying, whatever you ask for, I'll give you. Before you speak, I'll hear. Now, is that just a nice little piece of scripture? Before you speak, I'll hear. Well, let's analyze it from a logical point of view. What precedes the spoken word, the thought? What's the thought set up? It sets up the vibration. What is this work by? By vibration, movement. See, one of the laws of the universe is vibration. Everything vibrates, nothing rests. Everything from the electron to the universe is in a state of movement. Before you speak, I'll hear. Sound of God evolves around the law of vibration. I don't know if the book you've got has nothing on the next page, but my page is blank. If you want to take and number the next page, both sides of the next page, would you take and number that? Now, how many of you, or did you, write 35 and 36 on the next two pages? Why? Why'd you do that? Do you want to know why you did it? Because it seemed the most natural thing in the world to do. Because there was nothing on it. On one side it says 34, and the next one said 37. So this has to be 35 and 36. You could have put 16 and 102 if you wanted. There was nothing on the page. Nothing. Did you know that's exactly the way your life is every day? Blank. Nothing there. Put on it anything you want. You don't have to let what's on the previous page determine. You don't have to let what somebody tells you's coming determine. You can put anything on it you want. You got a clear sheet. You have right now, Mark has, I have, John has. Every one of us has. Now, grasp that. We can start over right now, build the image. You see, L did that. He said, I'm not going to work for $18,000 anymore. I am not going to be average anymore. I understand. When he went through the seminar, he started to grasp this. He said, I understand there's something special about me. He said, I'm going to treat me the way God meant me to treat me. Did his wife benefit? I guess she did. Did his daughter benefit? I guess she did. Did his manager benefit? I guess he did. And you want to know who else benefited? A whole pile of people that he helped move into the home of their dream. Did he provide service? Yeah, he did. Did he sacrifice? Sure. He was out lots of evenings when he could have been home. Think about it. Think about it. Up at the top of page 37, we say, once you fully understand this great truth, the character with which this sensitive reproductive power is invested will become the most important consideration for you. Your thoughts, you will start to guard them. You'll start to monitor them. You're going to start to really pay close attention to what's going on. See, once you become aware of this truth, that the universal creative power can only be what you feel and think it to be, it will become eager and willing to do your bidding. Say this understanding will enable you to be filled with the expectant attitude, and to expect the materialization of the image will become most natural for you. Do you know that if you put this particular tape on and play it every day for at least a month, there's so much depth to this idea. Every time you read it, you're going to see it clearer. It'll be as if you're standing at the base of a tall building facing east. And somebody said, what's the view like facing east? And you'll describe it. But then you go in and you raise your consciousness, you move up to the third floor and you go to the east wall and you look through the window. The view is different. You're still facing east, but it's different. And then you go and you raise your consciousness and you go up to the 10th floor and you go to the east wall and you look, but it's different. It's much more beautiful. And ultimately, if you'll keep listening to this and watching it and thinking it and relating it to your own life, you're going to work your way to the roof. And you'll see as far as your eyes can take you. It's like Paul told me one time. He said, go as far as you can see. When you get there, you'll see how to go further. Troward said, if you think your thought's powerful, it's powerful. Let's stroke from our vocabulary those three words, it's just me. It's just me. It's just me. Should never be just. Something absolutely phenomenal. When you're talking about you can speak in superlatives all day long and you're going to fall short of describing the dynamics of you. Talk about something special. You're sure special, believe me. I know I'm special. I think I'm a nice person. And you know something? It's because I know that and think that I attract nice people into my life. I've got some phenomenal friends. Later today, you're going to see everybody that works for our company, and I'm going to tell you, I was saying to Paul last night, I'm so proud to be working with these people. We have some of the nicest people that you'll ever want to meet working in this company. Just absolutely phenomenal. We were talking about Shirley Laverdier, our national sales manager. And I was saying last night at dinner, I said, you know something? I have never heard that woman complain. I've never heard her say anything negative. Physically, she's not very big, but I'm going to tell you, she's got a rod of steel right down her back. She's the toughest little lady I've ever met in my life, and smart. I was saying to Paul, we were with Gina and Randy, and I said, you know something? I said, they work at this company as if it's theirs. On the way home, I thought, maybe they got a picture in their mind. But anyway. But you don't attract people like this if you're not a nice person. You see, I grew up with the idea, don't say things about yourself like that. It's conceit. It is not. It's awareness. If you don't love you, how are you ever going to love anyone else? I'm not talking about conceit. I'm talking about a heightened awareness of what we're really like. Now, expressed another way, as a person thinketh in their heart, so are they. John worked on that yesterday just about as well as I've ever heard it worked on. It's in your heart. That's inside. That's what Paul was talking about. Universal creative power can no more change this law than an ordinary mirror can reflect back to you a different image than the object that you hold before it. But remember, as you think does not mean as you tell people you think. Why, there's a lot of people got that mixed up. It doesn't mean as you tell people you think, or as you would wish the world to believe you think. It means your innermost thoughts. What's going on inside? What do you think of you? The more you study you, you're going to find your belief system is based upon your evaluation of something. The more you evaluate you, the more you're going to believe in you. It means your innermost thoughts. That's a place where no one but you knows the truth. Your sanctum sanctorum. That's where you go to the closet and you close the door. Inside. That is what you expect, and that is what you will attract, and that is what you will ultimately get. All things are possible in spirit because it's an original state. Spirit is a sensitive, unseen, creative substance whose sole purpose is expansion and fuller expression. But spirit or creative substance can only reproduce, expand, or express itself in a greater way in accordance with the limitations placed upon the instrument through which it expresses itself. It's like the light bulb. What did John say to you a few minutes ago? Some of you recorded it mentally, and some of you might not have. He said, don't expect God to do for you what God can only do with and through you. Powerful line. Where did he get that so deeply sunk? Because he sat where you're sitting and he wrote it over and over and over and thought about it over and over and over and worked with it over and over and over. It doesn't just, it's the way it works. The non-physical creative substance, spirit, flows to and through the seed and expresses itself in its polar opposite physical form, namely the plant or the tree. Now, I want to take a minute. We are running a little late, but take a look, the third paragraph from the bottom of page 37. Spirit can only express itself through the medium of an acorn in accordance with the limitations placed on the acorn. And the medium of the acorn is limited by the pattern plan or the nucleus in the seed. Now, I want you to really think. I want you to imagine that that's an acorn. That acorn is not solid. It is moving. It is actually moving. That acorn is a mass of energy in a high speed of vibration. And at the present time, that acorn would be disintegrating because it can only do one of two things, create or disintegrate. It's disintegrating because it's not in an environment that's conducive to its unfoldment. Why do you think I suggested to Brian to get in with the big hitters? Dr. Livingston proved that from Harvard way back in the 60s. He took a person that wasn't doing well and he placed that person with people that were doing very well, and that person's productivity went up. Get into the right environment. That acorn, if we took the acorn and we planted it, let's say that's the acorn, and we plant the acorn below the Earth's surface. Instantly and automatically, that acorn would start to attract particles of energy to it. If I took 2 drops of water and I moved them together, what would happen? They'd become one. If I took a drop of peanut oil and a drop of water and moved it together, what would happen? They'd repel. Why? Because they're not on the same frequency. They're both massive energy, but not in harmonious vibration. There's all kinds of particles of energy in the earth that are not in harmony with the vibratory rate of the acorn, but they won't be attracted because they're not on the same frequency. Now, that acorn has a pattern plan or a nucleus in it. You'll hear many people say the oak sleeps in the acorn. That's not true. You'll never find an oak tree in an acorn. You can dissect it with the most powerful microscope you'll ever get your hands on. You'll never find an oak tree in it. Do you know why? There isn't one there. The oak tree's in the universe. Where does everything come from? Everything just is. Everything is an expression of the same thing. Everything, all supply comes from one infinite source, a non-physical source. Same as your money, your health, and everything else. This acorn has no ability to alter its state of vibration, so it keeps attracting little particles of energy, just like a magnet. And as they join with the acorn, it's like the drop of water. Keep adding drops to it, and pretty soon you're going to have a big puddle. This thing has to what? Expand. We call that growth. And a shoot comes out of the bottom, and another little shoot comes out of the bottom. Pretty soon a shoot comes out of the top, and it bursts through the earth into the atmosphere. And from the atmosphere, particles of energy, unseen to the physical senses, but not unseen to this power, and it's attracted, and that thing starts to grow, and pretty soon it has roots, and it has a trunk, and bark, and branches, and twigs, and leaves, and it has the whole thing. You know why? It cannot change its state of vibration. It's locked in. That's why an acorn can only grow into an oak tree. Carrot seed can only grow into a carrot. I know what makes us unique. We can grow into anything we choose because we build the idea. It becomes the nucleus. It controls our vibration, and that dictates what we attract to us. You know what our problem is? We're growing into an oak tree one day, a carrot the next, a maple tree the following day. And you know why we do that? Because we don't see what we think with our limited awareness is coming to us on time. We want the leaves before we even get the roots. Won't work. Never has, never will. Get locked into your idea and stay in that vibration regardless of what's happening. I've often said you'd have to put a great big bullet right through here to get me to stop doing what I'm doing. I don't want to do anything else. I made up my mind a long time ago. This is what I was going to do, and I was going to work at getting better at it every day. Lock into something. Find something you love to do and dedicate your life to it. I see people come into this business, and because they haven't made it in 3 weeks, they say, oh, hell, it won't work. You know, what do you mean won't work? Anything will work. They do it like they play a yo-yo. It's up and down, I'll throw the yo-yo away. Yeah. Never master it. You know, the average person reads at a grade 7 level. We learn to read by the time we're in grade 7 and never improve upon the skill. Very few people ever master anything. I want to suggest that through the repetition of listening and looking and watching this, you're going to master whatever you love to do. Go and do it. Get the courage to step out and do it. On page 38, Genevieve B. Rand said, when your understanding comes from knowledge, it's the polar opposite of ignorance. When your understanding, and remember, knowledge, the only way you can get it at is through study. Unfortunately, study seems to be something like taxes. People only do it if they have to. Well, what we want to do is fall in love with the idea of studying. When your understanding grasps the power to visualize your heart's desire. The heart is the spiritual core of your being. And you know something? Spirit's always for expression and fuller expansion. Spirit's always for growth, never for disintegration. When you see things get bad and they say it must be God's will, that's an expression of ignorance. God's will's always for expansion and fuller expression. Greater ways, greater things. That is God's will for you, for me, for everyone else. Never for hard times. Abundance is our birthright. We've been conned, folks. She said, when your understanding grasps the power to visualize your heart's desire and then hold it with your will. Don't let some peon suggestion knock the idea out of your mind. You can't do it because you never have up till now. Hold the idea with your will. Concentrate. Do like Napoleon. He said, I see only the objective. The obstacle must give way. Do like he did, but don't be like he was. He wasn't a nice person. She said, when you do that, it will attract to you all things requisite to the fulfillment of that picture, and it'll attract it by the harmonious vibration, the law of attraction. You know what you have to do? If nothing's created or destroyed, you've got to get on the same frequency as the good that you desire is on. There's music in this room right now. You don't hear it, but it's here. If I brought in a little transistorized radio and turned it on, you'd hear the music. Did I invite the music in, or did I tune into something that was already here? And all I have to do is change the dial and I get different music. And change it again and I get different music. And what am I doing? I'm tuning in on different frequencies. And as you get the image and get involved, you alter the frequency you're on. Therefore, you attract whatever's on that frequency. If you want poverty, tune into it. Be delivered right on schedule. Me, I've never liked poverty. Never. even when I lived in it. Now, the rest of page 38 is pretty, well, self-explanatory. You fill it in, but make sure you fill it in. On page 39, there are 3 lessons here, or 3 concepts. It'll take in whatever John's explained and what I've explained. 3 certain steps for prosperity in all areas of your life. On page 39. Number 1, build the image. That's plugging in the bigger bulb so that you can illuminate your life in a greater way. Turn it over to Spirit. Turn it over to Spirit. Let go and let John. Let go and let God. I was thinking of John as I was saying that. But for good reason. So we didn't edit it. It's for your benefit too. You know, when John and Pat Swanton talked to me about that house on Seven Barge Walkway that I made reference to yesterday, that Vera Bont and Brian and Leslie now live in, they came to me after they put a deposit on that, and they were worried because they didn't have the money. They couldn't even see where it was coming from. And I used that quote of Genevieve B. Rand's. I said, believe it's coming and it'll come. Just let go and let God. And it was a very, very funny feeling the day they moved into that house, because I was there and they moved into the day, 18th of December. The only thing that was in that house that was movable was the stove and the fridge. And on the refrigerator were a pair of praying hands, magnetic ones, that said, let go and let God. God's everywhere. He's everything. We'll work through you. We'll give you whatever you want. But you've got to ask for it. And you ask in the form of feelings. Number 3, expect. Well, if you take this lesson and you study it, you listen to the cassette tapes, and you watch these audio tapes or visuals, and you watch them over and over and over again, the expectation is going to become natural. We've already covered that. Expect it with your heart and soul that Spirit will reward you openly for your faith. It will reward you openly for your faith.
Everything that you need to receive the good that you desire is already here. Pat and John found that out. They believed, they got in harmony with the good that they desired, and it came to them. Just like with the acorn, the oak trees, and the universe. The pattern plan is in the acorn. When you build the image of what you want, that's the pattern plan in your life. It puts you into the necessary vibration to attract what you have to attract. Nothing is created or destroyed in this universe. It's all here. Everything you're seeking is seeking you. Hold on to that picture. You'll attract what you have to. Pat and John did.
Well, I really remember the night of December 20th when we moved into the house. As a matter of fact, it was snowing. And of course, the first place I head for is the kitchen. I walked in, looked at the fridge, and there were praying hands. And on the bottom of the praying hands, it said, let go and let God. And remember I said to you, where did they come from? The hands. Like it was a little magnet that just stuck on the side of the fridge. And you looked at me and said, I don't know. But that's how it all happens. I mean, you have to let go and let God. And that's what we did. It was an incredible evening. I remember that we must have been doing something upstairs, and somebody came to the door. John, remember you and I went running downstairs, and there was nobody at the door, but there was a package inside the door to the right hand, and it was a lovely blue box, and it said Burke's at the top. I said, John, we've got a gift. And took the thing upstairs and opened it, and it was an hourglass in there, and it was a gift from Bob, because he knew we were moving into the house. Well, he had faith that we were moving into the house. He didn't know exactly that we would. And gosh, it was a really special time. I mean, we had a mess like you can't believe, but it really didn't matter. We were in the house. We had all our stuff in there. And it was just a phenomenal time.
December 20th was a great day for me. And as you were saying, Pat, about the letting go and letting God, from the first time that we met Bob at the Prince, and we went through the exercise of deciding on what we wanted, making a decision, making a commitment on what we wanted to achieve, namely the house. There was a lot of things that, from my personality, and anybody that knows me would know that I tend to force issues, and I was working in commission sales, which is probably a great asset when you need a lot of money in a short period of time. And for the first week, I was really forcing, attempting to make sales, work harder, work longer. And fortunately, we were attending a seminar, one of Bob's seminars, during this time. And I had an opportunity to ask him during the seminar, what do I do? And Bob just looked at me and he said, let go. Let God. Don't force it. Just allow it to happen. And from that point on, I just went ahead, did my work, and allowed myself to receive the good that we wanted to desire. And it was the most important part of that exercise was to learn what to do when you want to achieve something. Whether it's a sale, whether it's a house, whatever it is. There's a number of years have passed since we purchased that house. And every day of every week, some little thing that we learned during that 7 weeks in late 1982, has come back to help us in our day-to-day life. And it's been important to both Pat and I. It's been important in our relationship. It's been important in building our financial stability that we have today. We feel that what we've learned has helped us achieve everything that we have now. And we had to let go and let God to achieve that.
And we still do.
And we still do.
Now, we've covered this concept of expectation and expecting abundance. What we really want to do is raise our level of awareness so the expectation becomes a natural state for our mind to be in. And we've already mentioned that expectation is a mindset. It's a mental state. And you're going to find that that state comes to you with an increase of awareness. Now, in talking about the law of vibration, we're starting off here saying the law of vibration explains the difference between mind and matter, between the physical state and the non-physical state of everything in the universe, which includes you. So we're talking about the non-physical, and here we're talking about the physical. Now, this non-physical part of our personality is where the mental magic starts to take place. We call these our creative tools. They're mentioned in an earlier lesson under the heading of intellectual factors. And it's the intellectual factors that we want to develop. And in developing them, what we do is raise our level of consciousness. Now you come back here, we say under the law of vibration, we find that everything vibrates, nothing rests. Everything is in a constant state of motion. There is no such thing as inertia. From the mental to the grossest form of matter, all is in vibration. This lectern is made of, I suppose we would call it lucite. However, it appears to be solid, but it's really not. If you look under a microscope, you'll see particles of energy moving. And of course, that would be the same with every physical form that you might look at under a microscope. Now, we say graduating between the lowest and the highest form of vibration, there are literally millions of cells or levels of vibration. Rates of vibration are known as frequency. The higher the frequency, the more potent it becomes. Thought being one of the highest forms of vibration and very potent in nature should certainly be understood. Now, I have mentioned in many, many seminars that thought waves are cosmic waves that penetrate all time and all space. It's not an accident if you happen to be wandering down the Champs-Élysées in Paris or maybe Oxford Street in London, England, and a loved one may be sitting in Colorado Springs, and they're really concentrating. Something has happened at home, and they really want you to phone home. All of a sudden, you get a feeling you should phone home. Now, what did we say feeling was? Vibration. Their thought waves are in resonance or in harmonious vibration on the same frequency as certain cells in your brain. And as that thought wave of theirs strikes your brain cells, it sets up a vibration in you. You call that a feeling. You've got a feeling you should phone home. And you phone and they'll say, oh, thank goodness you phoned. We've been wanting to talk to you. Do you think that's an accident? Again, it's the same thing when you pick up the phone to phone someone. You haven't touched the dial. The phone hasn't rang, and yet the other person's on the other end. We put that off as coincidence, and we laugh about it. It's an absolute law. You were in tune with the other person. Now, we started out yesterday morning with a glass of water. In the earliest lesson, we were coming under and talking about these three parts of our personality, and then we related it to energy. I held up a glass of water, and I said, in the state of vibration it was in, the energy was called water. Then we talked about heating the water. We called the same energy steam. It wasn't water any longer. And then we continued to heat the energy, and then we called it air, ether, or gas. It was the same energy. Now, let's let these lines here represent levels of vibration, or we could refer to them a different way, levels of consciousness. Now, we're going to take this bottom line and make it a little heavier. We'll put a couple of arrows on it. And then we will write the word self. Now, I would suggest that in your exercise book, on the opposite page to the law of vibration and attraction, that you make a drawing like this. Now, underneath, we'll write the word simple. Now, everything below this line is going to be referred to as a simple conscious state. This line is referred, and everything above, as a self stage of consciousness. Now, what we're dealing with are levels of vibration in consciousness. An animal is in a simple state of consciousness. We could have a little dog here on the set, and the dog would know it's on the set, but it doesn't know it knows it. A dog operates, as you and I do, with sensory factors, and they are to help the person communicate with their outside world, but they're not operating with any intellectual factors. They operate with instinct, which is perfect. So the dog knows and yet knows not. It's able, through its sensory factors, to look at its outside world, but not able to look at its inner world. You and I have the creative ability of looking at our inner world, and we're in what we call a self-conscious state. We are aware of our objective as well as our subjective world. Now, there are many varying degrees of consciousness until you reach the higher state, which is called divine or cosmic. Use whatever word you choose. It's divine or cosmic consciousness. All religions that have maintained their balance over any period of time are founded on the premise that we will one day be one with our Maker. We will reach this higher or divine conscious state. We will be aware of our oneness with this power. Now, you're going to find individuals who have a very low level of consciousness. They're way down here. Therefore, they have a very low level of what we call awareness. Now, the awareness dictates how that person lives. Whenever I mention this, I think of the first time I had an occasion to go down to the Loop or downtown Chicago. I was living in Glenview, and I went down the Edens Expressway, and as I was going along Michigan Avenue, I saw people laying right in the gutter. They were absolutely filthy. Now, these people were virtually living in an animalistic state, almost. And you would say, well, they're stupid. No, they're not stupid. Some of these people have degrees. Some may have a doctorate's degree or an MBA. What they have is a low level of consciousness. They could have a highly developed intellect, know a lot here, but still in a low vibration. They're not living there because they want to. They're living there because they do not know. They are not aware of how to change it. You will find then individuals, some are up in years, some are fairly young, that have a very high level of consciousness. They're not way down here with their consciousness. They have a very high level of consciousness, and they have a very, very high level of awareness. Now, these people have a phenomenal vibration. Their energy, you feel so good around them. There's something about them that you're attracted to. You're not quite sure what it is. You see, you couldn't articulate on it because it's vibration. You very rarely see these people upset. You very rarely see them excited or depressed. They have learned how to maintain a magnificent balance. Everything they do, they seem to do very, very well. They're very creative. They know how to get results. They know how to stay on track and not let the suggestions that are coming from their outside world knock them off track. Now, you and I live somewhere between here and here, and yet no knowledge. Now, let's suppose a person is on this level of consciousness. The only thing that person could attract is what's on that level or on that frequency. Consciousness, vibration, frequencies, we're talking about the same thing. If a person is earning, let's say, $25,000 a year, they're not earning 25 because they want 25. They're earning 25 because they are not aware of how to earn 50. If a person's suffering with headaches, they're not suffering with headaches because they want headaches. They're suffering from headaches because they're not aware of how to eliminate the headaches. If a person is alone and lonely, they're not alone and lonely because they want to be. They're alone and lonely because they're not aware of how to change it. Now, what you and I are really seeking is a higher level of awareness. And you know, that's what we're gaining as we're studying this material. The more often you watch this, the more you're raising your level of consciousness. Now, what you're really doing is raising your level of awareness. And we're going to get to the point where we're very, very tuned in. We say the law of vibration could be explained in many ways for various purposes. In this seminar, it is our intention to confine it to thoughts, an effort to improve the quality of our life. Now, I'm just going to touch on the first couple of pages, and then John's going to come up and tie this in on this board to goals. Because that's what we really want to know. We want to know, how does reaching the goal and the awareness of vibration, how do they connect? Where's the connection there? Well, the more we understand this, the more we'll understand what I'm saying here. Because everything vibrates. So what we want to do is get into harmonious vibration with whatever good we desire. We say here on the bottom of page 41, third paragraph in the bottom, for you to grasp a clear understanding of how you can actually take dominion over your results, to understand how and why thoughts and things come into your life as they do, you must go back to this basic premise which we started with in the very first lesson, where I held the glass of water and talked about the energy. We called it water, we called it steam, we called it air, ether, or gas. It was the same energy, it was just altering its level of vibration. Now we say energy is neither created nor destroyed. All science and all theology have taught us that for, let's say, for the past 6,000 years at least in recorded history. Now, everything is merely in a constant state of vibration, being manifest in all varying degrees of vibration. We have the ability to alter the vibratory rate of anything. I could take and alter the vibratory rate of this lectern. Call it lucite. I could turn it into air, ether, gas. I did that yesterday with a dollar bill. Just 1 minute it was paper, boom, the next minute it was air. I had the choice, I had the ability to do that because I'm a creative being. I do have dominion over it. Well, now we know that with simple little things. Let's use it for higher things. We say with free will and the other many mental factors we possess, in our marvelous mind, you have the co-creative ability to cause vibratory change to take place as you choose. If I'm not feeling good, negative vibration, I can switch the idea in my mind. All of a sudden I'm feeling good, positive vibration. How's that controlled? It's controlled by the various ideas that I will choose to entertain from time to time I'll build here and plant here. Because whatever goes in here dictates the vibration my mind body is in. And we must understand mind body are one and the same, not two. Not two. Now with free will, reason is one intellectual factor, will is another intellectual factor. Reason gives us freedom, and the will gives us the ability to lock into an idea and control our vibration. And stay in the vibration we must be in to attract something that's already here. It's like the way to fly the airplane was already here. We say the lack of ability to exercise this tremendous power for good is caused by ignorance. Now remember I put knowledge over here, and I said through study you develop understanding. Let's look at the polar opposite. Through ignorance, a person gets into a state called worry or doubt. They don't have the understanding of how to change vibration. They don't have the understanding of how to control what's going on the inside by blocking out what's going on the outside. Now, if a person is in this psychic state, that's called a mental disease, they're worried. They think they're not going to get what they need to look after what they say they have to look after. That worry, when it's impressed and changed into an emotional state, it then turns into something that's more commonly referred to as fear. That fear energy has to be expressed through the only instrument it can be expressed through, the physical body. Instantly and automatically, the body moves into a vibration more commonly known as anxiety. Now, the anxiety we usually treat with Valium. However, we have not looked after the cause, we're treating the effect. And the anxiety, of course, moves into disease, which moves into decay. It's like St. Clair Lewis one time said, we don't die, we kill ourselves. What's the polar opposite to this? Well, with an understanding of this law, of this expectant concept that we've discussed, with what John's going to tie in here now to our goals, you never have to worry about whether you're going to reach your goal. Through the repetition of hearing and studying and watching and learning this information, you'll never fear whether you're going to get there. Because you see, understanding gives us the ability, if we cannot see the positive circumstance on the outside, we can build it on the inside. That's why Napoleon said, circumstance, hell, I make them. George Bernard Shaw said, people are always blaming circumstance for what they are. He said, I don't believe in circumstance. The people who get on in this world are the people who get up, look for the circumstances they want, and if they can't find them, they make them. They have the understanding they can do that. And through doing that and getting emotionally involved, they then set up an emotional state that's quite opposite to fear. It's called faith. The faith must manifest on the physical plane as health or well-being. Now, this could be in our social life, could be a healthy body, healthy bank account, healthy business. Name it and claim it. So you can see, it really makes a lot of sense to know how to take control of this. We say, let there be light. And there was light. Let there be light. You'll never force light. Light is consciousness. Force negates. Force only works in the physical plane of light. On the mental plane, you have to let it happen. You just let it flow into your consciousness. Flip over to page 42. Page is self-explanatory. I've been talking all the way along. I talked about the importance of environment. We were using Nino's office as an example. It's got a lot of heavy hitters in there, big producers, positive people, people with high expectation, with real worthy goals. I introduced Grant Sylvester yesterday, and I do a lot of work with their company. They got a big company. It's an effective company. That company started 4 years ago with financial planning centers. They have about 90 centers now across Canada. The first center started about 4 years ago in Moncton, New Brunswick. Don McKay and Fern Robichaud started that center. Most people would expect to maybe earn a profit in the first 2 or 3 years. They think that was pretty good. These two men earned $250,000 the first year in business in Moncton, New Brunswick. Now, Moncton is not the economic capital of the world. How did they do it? It doesn't matter where you are outside. It's like Paul said, it's where you are inside. Don McKay and Fern Robichaud expect the best. Grant Sylvester and the executives in that company expect to attract people that want to open businesses, and they attract them. And the people are very successful. This page, 42, focuses on that. It talks about the positive and the negative personalities. We made reference yesterday to Raymond Aaron's Millionaires Club. He has attracted a group of people, every one of them want to learn to be a millionaire. He's a pretty good guy to teach them. The guy's a millionaire. How do you become a millionaire? Same way you can become, or same way any of his people. Right thinking, right ideas. He has the ideas. You want to get it? Go to him. Does he give them to you for nothing? No. Servant's worth is higher. But it works. Why? Environment again. You're in tune. You're mixing with the right people. Now, if you're a negative person, in other words, you're choosing negative ideas, you're worrying, fear, and anxiety, you know the only thing you can attract? The people that are vibrating on that frequency. You're going to attract other negative people. Misery loves company. That just isn't a cute saying. Birds of a feather flock together. Now, if you're a heavy hitter, understand this. Eagles don't flock. Sparrows do. Big difference. And the heavy hitters, they're all attracted to each other. They go to the same clubs. They take the same kind of vacations. They drive the same kind of cars. They live in the same neighborhoods. Now, if you're not one, how do you become one? Mix with them. You choose your environment. That's exactly what I did. 27 years ago, I was sitting in a bar here in Toronto. That's where I spent most of my time and all my money that I could beg, borrow, and steal. I very rarely earned very much in those days. One day I picked up a glass and I looked at it and I looked around and I thought, they're all bums in here. They were. Then I thought, geez, I must be a bum too because I'm always here. I'm one of them. They're one of me. You know what I said? I put the glass down. I said, I'm never coming back as long as I live. And I never have. I never have. And strange thing, none of them have phoned to see how I am. That's almost 30 years ago. They never missed me, did they, Mark? Never did. No, they don't even know I'm gone. On page 43, we're talking about our connecting links. Slowly but deliberately see with your inner eye of understanding how you connect with the good that you desire. We say two objects whose electromagnetic fields are the same have the same frequency, therefore they are in resonance, in harmony, or have a rapport. When two objects are in resonance, or well within the same sphere of relative motion of each other, vibration can be transmitted from one to the other through the medium of the electron. Resonance is concerned with the electromagnetic field surrounding the objects. We find that a globe on a chandelier will vibrate in resonance with a certain key on the piano, yet it will not vibrate to any other key on the piano, just the one. Music is vibration, I think, isn't it, Scott? That's what it is. Why do you think music will make you feel so good sometimes? Why do you think music will get you jumpy and make you want to dance, you know? Why? Vibration. Affects cells in your brain, puts you in a new vibration. You want to act differently. There's some radio stations that you enjoy. They're in harmony with the way you think. There's some that drive you crazy. They're not in harmony with the way you think. But there's a market for them all. We say all electrical, on page 43, around the middle of the page, all electromagnetic waves or quantums have their rate of frequency, which means the number of changes in direction per second. The electric wave spectrum is in a scale of vibration and is divided into regions. One must remember that these regions are not actual divisions, but merely arbitrary spaces covering frequencies that manifest in our senses in different ways, each region blending into both the one above and the one below, like we said, like the colors of a rainbow. Now we say the earth and the universe are all but degrees in one scale and are in their basic nature the same. The difference be solely a matter of degree or vibration. All manifests of the same energy. Do you know that when you grasp this idea, all of your prejudices will disappear. It'll disappear. just like the negative consciousness we're going to show you in the next lesson. They'll disappear. And you know why they'll disappear? Because of understanding. It's the removing of ignorance. Now read this last paragraph carefully. When the world understands this truth, that everything is an expression of the same thing, we will see that all people are the same. They only appear to be different. How do they appear to be different? They appear to be different to our physical senses, our lowest mental tools. The dividing lines are not borders, color, or language, but ignorance. You attract whatever or whomever you are in harmonious vibration with. The results vary. The people remain the same. The results vary. The people remain the same. We may see a black man and a white woman, or a white woman and a black man. You know what I enjoy watching when I see that? I enjoy watching the people around. Watch the expressions on their faces. The shock, the anger, the horror. Do you know what they're expressing? Ignorance. It's them that is in the bad vibration. We have got some real crazy ideas. How do we get these ideas? Well, I remember when I was a little boy, you know, in the little life that John talked about yesterday, I can remember my grandmother. She was a dear old lady. I loved her. I can remember her saying, well, they're Catholics, but they're nice people. On page 44, we say everything is an expression of the same thing. Now, we're repeating ourselves just different ways. But I want you to take time and read these paragraphs carefully. Re-listen to these tapes. Watch these videos over and over and over again. And tie it in with what we're saying here, and it's going to take on a different meaning. In the second paragraph, you are connected to everything in the universe and everything with you. Whether you can see it with the naked eye or not is unimportant. The only difference between one thing and another is in density or amplitude of vibration. That is the only difference. When you choose certain thoughts, brain cells are affected. They vibrate and send off electric waves. When you are concentrating on those thoughts, you increase the amplitude of vibration of those cells, and the electric waves become much more potent. Do you want your thoughts to be more potent? Develop the willpower, the will, and the mental faculty. That gives you the ability to concentrate. I'll give you an analogy that you're all familiar with. It'll do exactly the same thing. You go outside on a nice sunny day, and you all did this from your little boys and little girls, and you take a magnifying glass. And you may have a piece of paper, some leaves, or you might even have your hand there. And you take the sun, and you put the magnifying glass between the sun and the object, and you can start a fire with it. How? You increase amplitude of vibration. The rays become much more potent. They become hotter, and like that. Let's take a candle, and let's suppose I put a sign way over here on the wall. We turn out all the lights, and I'll light the candle and ask you to read the sign. You'd say, I'm not able to. And I'd say, why? You'd say, there's not enough light. That would appear to be the correct answer, but it would be wrong. The reason you're not able to read the sign is because the light is not being directed at the sign. Now, if I took exactly the same candle power and I confined it in a flashlight and I held the flashlight towards the sign, you'd be able to read it with these. See, well, the candle's here. Some of the light's going on you, some on me, all over the place. But when I confine the same candle power to a flashlight, I'm marshalling the energy and I'm directing it towards a given point, and it becomes much more powerful, and you'll be able to read the sign with these. Enough light, misdirected. We got enough power, we misdirect it. We think of too many unimportant things. Our mind's shooting all over the place. The average individual would have more ideas running across their mind in a matter of a minute than you'd find in the Encyclopedia Britannica. Just total loss of control. Know that you are originating those electric waves, and know that you are also determining the density of them by your own choice. You must also know that since you are originating these electric waves, your whole being is in that particular vibration. Now think. You're taking brain cells and you're causing them to increase in amplitude of vibration, and you're sending off a powerful surge of energy. Do you know the only energy those brain cells can take on is the same energy it's sending off? The only energy those brain cells can take on is a like energy to that which you're sending off. You focus on the negatives in another person, what kind of energy do you think you're taking on? What kind of a vibration do you think you're in? It might be a wise idea to focus on the good aspects of even the worst situation. I could have got upset when the yo-yo string broke, or I could laugh at myself. I've got a choice. One time I wasn't able to laugh at myself. Now I frequently do. Higher awareness. John always has. You know. On page 45. Now, page 45 deals with something we're all familiar with. We have had magnificent instruments that's been used in the medical profession for years. And these magnificent instruments do nothing but measure vibration. The brain, the heart. And they'll tell you whether you're healthy or whether you are moving into trouble. Do you know how they can tell? By the vibration you're in. By the vibration you're in. I remember one time years ago, I had to go for a stress test for insurance. I didn't particularly like the idea of going because it was time-consuming, and who wants to run on a conveyor belt for a half hour? They'd have you running up and down stairs and jumping up and off and down steps. And then they'd lay you down and they'd wire you up. You see, they would put this electrocardiograph on you. And they would measure it, and then they'd have you wait a few minutes, and they'd measure it, and then take a few minutes and take another reading, take a few minutes, take another reading. And of course you get on there and your heart's going blah, 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 and you're out of breath. I mean, you're just about worn out. Now, I have practiced relaxation, meditation, concentration for a long, long time. And rather than take a long time, because I was in a rush, I just instantly returned myself to a normal state. They called me a little while later, said, you got to come back for another stress test. The machine wasn't working right. That's the truth. And of course, there's a lot of people that are able to do that. You're quite able to do it. All you have to do is learn how. And we want to understand that the brain is that electronic instrument that controls the nervous system throughout the body, which is the electrical system in the body. You've heard of people having nervous breakdowns? No such thing. Person had a nervous breakdown, they'd be a puddle on the floor. The nervous system is the electrical system that keeps the body intact. They lose conscious control. Conscious control. This explains why, on page 45, they do not understand how to control this magnificent electrical instrument that they live in. Your body is the most phenomenal object on planet Earth, in the cosmos as far as I'm concerned. We are truly creative beings in charge of our own world. And we're in charge because we can alter vibration. Alter vibration. Or as I was saying with Scott in the music, create new vibration. Color is vibration. You ever noticed if you wear a certain color, you feel better? They have found by painting hotel or hospital rooms, nice bright yellows and pinks, people get better faster. Used to be cut well, sew well, get well with the doctors. Well, now they're paint well, you know. I mean, big difference. Now, I'm going to ask you to turn over to page 46. And as you focus in on page 46, I'm going to ask that you focus on your goal. Get the thing that you want more than anything else riveted in your mind. And then take every bit of information that John focuses on this board and relate it to the goal. Don't just listen to it as information. Let this information mean something to you. And take all the ideas that he's going to come across and direct it towards the object or the thing that you truly desire.
Dr. Ken McFarland, the late Dr. McFarland, the great educator, he said anything's possible if the motivation is strong enough. You'll remember Heinz Dawes, how his circumstances were not too favorable. He thought he was going to lose his house. Well, Heinz was sitting in the seminar. His fantasy became a theory. Heinz's fantasy, even though he was having difficulty maintaining his home, was to drive a new Cadillac. And it was while he was sitting in the seminar that his fantasy literally became a theory. Heinz took that theory and turned it into a fact in a short 21-day period.
I got my Cadillac in 22 days after I made that promise to myself. There were certain things that Bob suggested we went to one of the dealers in Toronto and got half a dozen brochures. I cut out the page of the car which I wanted, which was a Coupe de Ville. I had one stuck in the bathroom, one on the dash of my old car, one in the kitchen, one in my attaché case, one in the office, and one directly on the ceiling in our bedroom.
You went and sat in it.
Eh?
You went and sat in it too.
Yes, that was one of the other things. Try to get the senses involved as much as you can. So Bob suggested that sit behind the car and pretend it's yours. Smell the leather. Have the air conditioning blow on you. Listen to the stereo. We got the senses involved, and this friend of mine took a picture of me in this car. I still have the picture. I also carried a little goal card with me that Bob suggested, so that every time I put my hands in my pocket, that mental picture was being recreated. I had never written so much business in such a short period of time, ever. And at that time I was in the business about 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Many of the suggestions we make in the seminar may seem immature, they may seem childish. Heinz Dawes was a mature human being. He had been an insurance agent for 15 years. But he took the suggestions that we gave and he followed through on them. He literally got a photograph of himself sitting in an automobile. Now that photograph had a real impact on Heinz's brain and ultimately on his mind, and he accomplished that goal in a relatively short period of time. Right on the first page of your action planner, we recommend that you take a photograph of yourself and place it in this square. There's a photograph of yourself. There's a suggestion that you're born rich. You're a prosperous person. Now what we want to suggest is that you get a photograph of yourself with your goal. It might be a new home. Shop around, pick out the place you like, stand in front of it, and get your photograph taken. Go and sit in an automobile. Get the picture of yourself, literally a physical picture, and hold that picture in your mind. Look at it as often as possible. Now, John Canary is going to talk to you about the importance of vibrations and goals. Vibration is everything. That's what the picture does. It puts you in the vibration. Listen to John as he elaborates on that.
Now, someone gave us a number of books here not too long ago, and there's something in here that I want to share with you because I know what happens when we go through this particular session. A lot of people go away from it and they ask this question instead of studying. What do you mean by vibration? What do you really mean? Well, this is about the best definition I've ever found. Every thought changes the rate of vibration. As you are enabled to think greater, deeper, higher, and more forceful thoughts, the brain cells are refined and they become more powerful and they are enabled to receive finer vibrations. What does that mean? I say time and time again to people that we don't get what we want, but we do get what we are. Now you've got to really think about this. We don't get what we want, but we do get what we are. That's probably one of the most important things that I've ever heard. Not only heard, but it's one of the most important things I've ever learned. How do we actually get what we want? By becoming something different in vibration. Now, let me allude to something that I mentioned earlier and something Bob's been talking about quite a bit. When you talk about the attitude of an individual, I mean the total person. What you're actually stating is that my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions represent what is called my attitude. Let me ask you this. What are your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions towards your personal life? Just toward you as an individual. What are your thoughts, feelings, and actions, let's say, towards your income or your business life? What are your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions, let's say, towards your family life? Because you see, your thoughts, feelings, and actions is what determines your state of vibration. Your thoughts, feelings, and actions, it actually determines who and what you are, as well as what it is you're going to get, as well as what it is you're going to get. Now, I want to cover just one concept to show you how you can actually begin to do it. Here's the first thing you've got to understand, is that knowing does not precede doing. Now, I want you to really think about what I just said. Knowing does not precede doing. The moment we as individuals begin to focus on a particular objective, or we start to look at what it is we want, we don't necessarily feel good about getting it. We can see it, we can think about it, but we don't necessarily feel good about doing it. I'm going to give you a good example. How many people here in sales? That's a few. The rest of you beware. Now consider this for a moment. How many people here really get up, enthusiastic, and enjoy cold calling? How many do not? Now keep your hands up, the ones who do not. Is it true, though, that you know you must do it? Isn't it true that you would like to feel comfortable doing it? The moment that you start to go out cold calling, or as Paul mentioned yesterday, meeting that particular girl. Okay, put your hands down now. Or meeting that particular guy. That is suddenly a demand that changes your rate of vibration, or changes, you could say, the way that you feel. Now, consciously, you know what you have to do. You know what it is you're working toward. You know what it is you want. But inside, there's a feeling, an uncomfortable feeling, or you could say a rate of vibration, giving you feedback, telling you why you can't do it. Now, this is what you have to do in very, very simple terms. How many learned to drive with a stick shift? Do you remember what it was like? Now, isn't it true that consciously you had all the knowledge to drive that car? Yes, no? And you get in there, and you're anything like me, you had a person sitting beside you. And they said, now here's what I want you to do. They're giving you instructions. They said, I want you to put foot in clutch, put the other one in the brake. Hold both hands in the wheel. Then reach over, make sure you pull this thing up, put it down there in the first, reach over and start the car. Now, as soon as you got to start it, make sure you keep one foot in the clutch, the other one in the brake. Now, as soon as you're all ready, I want you to let your foot off the clutch just a little bit. As soon as you do, take foot off, brake same time, give it a little bit of gas. Get it going about 10, 15 miles an hour. Now, keep in mind, now what you got to do, as soon as you get it going 10, 15 miles an hour, the engine starts to roar. So what do? Take foot off the gas, put the one in the clutch, put it up there in a second. Take foot off the clutch again, put it back in the gas. Get it going to about 20, 25. Now, be careful now. You don't want to go too far because the engine will start to roar again. You burn the engine out. So I'm sure as soon as you do that, you put the foot in the clutch again. Take foot off the gas, though, at the same time, and you put it down there in the third, take it back off the clutch again, put it back in the gas, you get it going. You got it? Got it. Now, they said, now, just before you pull out, I want you to be careful. Now, I want you to take one hand, put it over here behind me, keep the other one on the wheel, keep one in the clutch, keep the other one in the brake. Now, they said, as soon as you relax, take this hand back here and take it, grab it down there where it was in third, put it up there into first, put your hand back here, and now you got it back up there in reverse. Now, keep your hand in the wheel there, keep the other one in the clutch, keep the foot in the brake, and then start to let it off the clutch just a little bit. As soon as you do, put it in the gas. But just before you do that, make sure you look this way. No cars coming that way. No kids in front. Make sure you look this way. Somebody may be walking behind the car. Now, as you got this here thing going, you're standing like this. What I really want you to do now, as soon as you back that up a little bit, make sure you put your foot back in brake, but make sure you put it back in the clutch again, and put your hand back over, pull it down in the first. As soon as you do that, take it off the clutch, off the brake, and get it going in the gas. Go through the same procedure, hit the clutch, put it back up there in the second, take it off the clutch, put it back in the gas, get it going again, and take it off what? Off the gas, put it back in the clutch, put it down in the third, back in the gas, and away you go. You got it? Yeah. Now, what actually happened is you had all the knowledge to drive the car. But you know what's interesting? You were not yet in harmony with your idea. But you started to do it not once, but over and over and over again. And as Bob pointed out yesterday, until the idea became fixed, you developed a sufficient number of brain cells to do it. Now think about this. You have got in mind something that we call a goal. Now, where you are today are where your thoughts have brought you. I don't mean sitting in this room. But I mean that everything that you have brought in your life, everything that you have to this point in time, is a result, nothing more, of the state of vibration you are in mentally, emotionally, and physically. Now, folks, instead of working so much toward this on the outside, we have to increase our state of vibration in this way. The more and more that you think about where you're going and how you're going to get there, and you go out and act on the idea. And you know, that's the difference. People will not act on the thing they want. They seem to entertain themselves by visualizing that they can have it, how nice it would be to get it, but when it comes to acting on it, their vibration, the way they feel about it, tells them they can't have it. So they spend their life dreaming rather than acting. What was it one time said? And all that was left when his living was through were the mountain of things he intended to do tomorrow. Let me ask you this. What habit patterns do you need to get to where you want to go? What habit patterns do you need to get to where you want to go? I believe it was Oscar Wilde who said one time, why is it that you and I were never told that in our brain we hold, in just one single tiny ivory cell, this kingdom called heaven, or this kingdom called hell? In other words, when you impress your idea, you cause these cells to move at a certain rate of vibration. Do you know, when you take an idea and you impregnate it over and over again, you impregnate that idea into one cell. When you impregnate that idea into the cell, that cell is dividing 1 into 2, 2 into 4, 4 into 8, 8 into 16 to 32, 64. And the process goes on at the rate of 50,000 cells per second. And the more and more you act on it, even though you don't feel good about it, but you work with the idea, you start to develop this change in vibration. But what is really happening is you're impregnating the cells with the characteristic or the idea. And these cells are going to search out the very thing necessary to get you to where you want to go, to complete the manifestation of that idea. What was the great statement by our friend Einstein that he had burned into the corner of his desk? He said it was responsible for every great invention. When he said that all creation waits with eager longing for the revealing through the sons of man, you and I. In other words, everything that you want is already here. The best way to do what you're doing, it's already here. It's never been thought of, but it's already here. It's just that it's in, as Bob explained, in another form. What we need to do is we need to constantly think about where we're going, what we want to do, and we start to increase our level of thinking by vibration, and we begin to attract thoughts of a like nature that'll move us in that direction. But you can't sit and wish. There is a difference in wanting a thing and being ready to receive it. And being ready to receive it. So just suppose you know what it is you want, and you ask yourself, what habits do I need to form or develop to bridge the gap from where I now find myself to the point I want to reach? You know, the only difference in steam and ice is the state of vibration of the water or the H2O. Do you know the only difference in where you are versus where you want to go is your state of vibration? Do you know that everything to get you there is already here? And it always has been. There's a gentleman that I have not met. He's in the audience today. And his name is Boris Pico. Listen to this. This man lost or did not have a car or his driver's license, I'm not sure which. But Boris, where are you? Boris, stand up so everybody can see you for a moment. Boris sold in 1 month without a car 28 homes. But listen to this. What is really interesting is he stands up there. Boris is not going to speak, so it's okay. I just want you to see him. I never even met you, Boris. I just was reading this. Without a car, he sold 28 homes in a month. And he said, what happened is, just walk down a little bit, Boris, so people can see you a little bit better there. And what happened is, because he didn't have a car, he said, I decided just to go out and knock on doors every day. Now you see, as a result of that, he not only formed the habit, but he changed his entire state of vibration. Consequently, everything that was in harmony with the way Boris thinks, with the way Boris feels, and the way Boris acts, he started to attract that very thing into his life. That very thing into his life. Without a car. Without a car. Why don't we give Boris a hand? Now, let me tell you one of the reasons I think we don't get to where we want to go. I think it's because we try to be too realistic and too practical about the goals that we set. Now, I've heard people come to me and they'd say, you know, you've got to be realistic and you've got to be practical. I can tell you that's the one thing that no one can ever accuse Bob of being, is practical or realistic. Hans Selye, who was the greatest doctor on stress on this earth, anywhere he'd speak, he would attract some of the greatest minds from all over this earth. And I've carried this around with me for a long time, this statement by Selye. And Selye said that he found beyond a shadow of a doubt that practical and realistic people are not as practical and realistic in the long run of life as the dreamers who pursue their dreams. There's an article about a man on here who applied to every United States medical school and was refused by every single one of them, telling him he would never be a doctor. Now keep in mind, the idea that he held was searching out in all these cosmos, every corner of these cosmos, to find a way for that idea to become a reality. And they all rejected him. And almost say the idea doesn't work. And then he wrote it once more. He did it again. They rejected him the second time. And then he wrote once more and they rejected him the third time. Don't you think that was enough to change his state of vibration? Don't you think that was enough for him to turn his desires inward and give up on the goal or the idea? They say depression is energy at its lowest state of vibration. They say that success is energy at its highest state of vibration. Happiness, joy, is orderly vibration. Well, I took this idea because this man, I think you know, as the man with the first artificial heart. In other words, he invented the first artificial heart. Anybody know who I'm talking about? Dr. Jarvik. 3 times he was rejected. But he kept on and he kept on and he made it. I took that idea to a gal who had given up on life. Call her at any time. Her name? Robinson. Hillary Robinson. Hillary was not in the healthiest state at the time. In other words, her state of vibration was very low because Hillary stopped looking in the direction that she should have been looking in. She wasn't expecting things to happen in her life for a happier, for a healthier, for a more productive life. She was not looking for it. Consequently, she wasn't getting it. And as we started to talk to Hillary, remember what I pointed out here? That every thought changes the rate of vibration. You see, if I were to take someone right out here on the platform and I started to get you to build a picture on the screen of your mind about something that is pleasant, that is enjoyable, something that you truly would like to have, you truly would like to be, you would change your state of vibration. if you can maintain it for a period of time, you would enjoy it longer. If you can maintain it for an additional period of time, not only would you enjoy it longer, you'd start to meet people like you. You'd start to bring things consistent with that rate of vibration or state of vibration. In other words, your outside world would change because your inside world has changed. Because your inside world has changed. You could call her at any time. Because you know what happened to this young lady? I'm not going to read her goals and the things she's achieved, but we sat beside her and she listed all of her goals, 10 of them. While she was in that negative state of vibration, we were able to get her to see herself in a different light. She started to list the goals, and she's achieved every single one of them, and I'll throw one more in as a bonus. She just opened her own company with her husband recently. I'll guarantee you, Bill Lawrence, you must know Hillary Robinson that worked with Roy Stevens. Everything changed when her state of vibration changed. And when your state of vibration changes, it changes as a result of your attitude changing. In other words, your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions, when they change, your whole energy that's being expressed begins to change. Now, on page 46 at the very top, on vibrations and goals, numerous times in other programs it has been suggested that everything you are seeking is seeking you. Think about that. I just mentioned that you are today where your thoughts have brought you. Because as we think, we actually travel. As we think, we travel. We may be able to stand still physically, but we are forever moving in thought. We are forever moving in thought toward that which we most secretly love, be it base of beautiful or a mixture of both. For we always gravitate towards that which we most secretly love. Always do. Even the things we don't like are the things we love. Otherwise, we wouldn't have them. It was suggested that we already have everything that we want. You don't have to get anything. It is simply a matter of becoming aware of what you already have, for it is within. It's with you always. If energy is neither created nor destroyed, everything you will ever want is already here. Now think about that. A higher rate of vibration always destroys a lower rate of vibration. If we have negative things in our life that we don't want, we need only go to a higher order of vibration. Now here are some questions you must answer, because it'll tell you what state of vibration you're in. Suppose I were to ask you, do you hate misery more than you love happiness? Do you hate poverty more than you love prosperity? Do you hate disease more than you love health? Because you see, if you hate these things, you increase the possibility of them becoming yours. The thing you hate is yours. The thing you love is yours. Whatever it is you love, it is yours. If not in the physical world, it definitely is in the mental and spiritual world. Do you hate misery more than you love health? Do you love prosperity more than you hate poverty? More than you hate poverty. Let me go on. It is simply a matter of choosing the thoughts that will put you into harmonious vibration with the good that you desire. What are the thoughts that have put you in harmony with the good that you desire? What does your desire look like? Suppose you were to run a movie through in your mind. With you as the star and you as the director, what would it really look like? Because that's how you get into harmony with the things you desire. The moment you bring your life into harmony with the law, the negative will have taken wings, for the cause will have been removed. Think about it. If you want to remove a negative from your life, what you must do is go to a higher order. And a higher order of vibration always destroys a lower order of vibration, and negative is a lower order of vibration. The secret to receiving on the physical plane the results you desire is covered more adequately in the lesson we went over in expectation. Think about it this way. Do you know in a limited state of understanding, we actually sit down and logically reason that we can only get something, or we can only we can't receive it, or we can't give it until we receive it. We logically try to prove that to ourselves. In a limited state of understanding, we actually try to reason that we must get before we can give. And when Bob goes through the vacuum law of prosperity, believe me, there's going to be some navels pop around this room. Some navels pop around this room. I was with my good buddy, Mike Proctor, last week, and he was telling me a story about a man that I'd sat down and talked to over a year ago. And we were talking about this very thing. I said, you know, my friend, you're in a very negative state of vibration. A very negative vibration. And he got quite upset at me. And I told him unless he changed his state of vibration, he's going to get more of the same in his life, which wasn't very much. Last month, he was at their convention. As the story goes, before the night ended, he had the chairman of the board and the senior vice president in a headlock at 1 o'clock in the morning, telling them what was wrong with the company and how he was going to change it. The next day, he didn't even remember it. But see, I said over a year ago that more of the same was going to happen unless he changed his state of vibration. Obviously, he has not, at least to that day. So this lesson then is designed to help you understand how to get into harmonious vibration with the good that you desire, and then how to stay in that state of vibration. Think about it this way. There are people who come to me and say they're looking for the right mate. How can I find the right mate? Well, what you do is be the right mate. You see, you don't get what you want, you get what you are. And when you become in spirit, when you become mentally, when you become spiritually, when you become emotionally involved in what it is you want, you become that person that would have it. You become that person that would have it. The law of perpetual transmutation of radiant energy. Well, I believe that Bob just briefly touched on it a moment ago when he said a person throws off a positive vibration, that person must, under the law of perpetual transmutation of energy, take on an equal amount, because as we sow, so shall you reap. In other words, when we think about something, good, bad, or indifferent, that energy that we release, we are going to take on an equal amount of exactly the same kind. You're going to take on an equal amount of the same kind. That's why some people believe, you see, that, you know, that if it's expedient to be honest, fine, I'll be honest. If it's expedient to shade it a bit, fine, I'll shade it a bit. No, you get it all back. You get it all back. It's like they said to the old Indian when he was working with his boomerang. They said, why don't you get a new boomerang? Well, he said, every time I throw this one away, it keeps on coming back. And every time you throw out a thought, you don't have to say it verbally. You only have to think it. You only have to feel it. You're going to get it back. That's why we were taught to think well of people. To think well of people. So the law of perpetual transmutation of radiant energy, what does it teach us? Well, you see, if I were sitting down and I were talking to Brian, as a matter of fact, you know, I meet a lot of people in my life, and if I ever wanted to be like anybody, I mean really like someone, and their attitude and just their presence and their well-being, I think it'd be Brian. A more pleasant guy, his state of vibration is so good. He has such a beautiful state of vibration. You just feel it when you're around him. It makes you feel comfortable. You like yourself because you've met him. That's because, you see, he makes you feel good about you. Now you think about this, and then I'm going to bring us in for a landing. People go out and they say, I'm going to try this about giving and receiving. I heard this Proctor and Canary said that if you just go out and do the best you can for people, you're going to get it all back. They said it, so it must be. And I've watched people go out like Tammy, and they give their best, and doesn't come back. And then I watch someone else will go out, and they'll give a person the best they've got, and they'll give them all the knowledge, all the information they need, and the person will stroll down to someplace else and buy what it is they want. And you say, that's it, I'll never do that again as long as I live. They were wrong. I'll never go to one of those seminars again, it's all a pile up. Let me ask you something. Have you ever received anything just like that? You never asked for it. You never really expected it. It could have been a sale where someone just walked in and said, I'll take 4 of those. And you go, you'll never believe what a coincidence. Did I ever get lucky today? Someone walked in and bought it all. Has that ever happened to anybody where you made or something happened you weren't expecting it totally? That ever happened to anybody? Am I the only one? I was going to ask how many people know how to hold up their hands. But now think about this. Your responsibility is just one. Just one. If you can understand that every thought changes your state of vibration, every thought you entertain, that means that the only responsibility we have is to put it out. To put it out. Universal principle, spirit, whatever that which is. The no thing, as Edison called it. It will reciprocate in like kind, but it does not say when or from where or through whom it is coming back. Please understand that. If I give the best I've got to Jim, I may get it back from Brian. Spirit, universal intelligence, it will determine whether I'm getting it back and when and how I'm going to get it back. I'd give anything for a young person to understand that. Because you don't get it back from the person you've given it to doesn't mean you're not getting it back. Your responsibility is to put it out. Universal intelligence will determine how, when, and through whom it is coming back. It is coming back. I'm sure that years ago in 1975 down at the Hyatt when Bob was sitting down with Paul Hutsey, that never in his wildest dreams did he ever think he was going to get back a lot of the things that he was putting out at that time. He just knew he was getting it back, but he didn't know when. But it still is. It still is. So let me ask you this. If you don't like what you're getting back in your life, I'm going to ask you, have you examined lately what you're putting out? And how you examine what you're putting out is you ask yourself, what is my state of vibration? What is it? Well, here's how you tell. What are my thoughts, feelings, and actions toward my personal life? What are my thoughts, feelings, and actions toward my business life? What are my thoughts, feelings, and actions toward my family life? That's how you tell. That's not difficult to do. And that'll tell you what your attitude is, what your state of vibration is, and it'll tell you why you have the things that you actually have.
You may want to review that part that John just covered, and most certainly reread page 46, and jot down the notes that come to your mind as you relate the message or the ideas on that page about vibration and goals to your own specific situation. We've given you some suggestions on other goals. We've suggested trips, cars. It may be furs or jewelry. Watch this, and then prepare yourself as we bring this in for a landing on the last cassette. There's some interesting information that I think you'll even find fascinating. I'm going to proceed on the premise that you followed every suggestion John or I have given you. You've got involved in every exercise. The goal is firmly established. You've got the picture. And now you're prepared to make your move. Now, this is what we call the moment of truth. This is where you exercise your natural risk-taking ability. We mentioned right at the beginning of this series, when we referred to that beautiful little baby, that baby is a natural-born risk-taker. So are you. So am I. So is everyone. Our problem is we have many shackles that we pick up as we move along the road. Fear holds us back from literally living our dreams. And that's the only kind of life that we want to be involved in. Let's choose to live the way we really want inside. Now, Abraham Maslow's pointed out that you're either going to step forward into growth or you're going to step back into safety. There's no compensation in playing it safe. Pay particular attention to this part of the You Were Born Rich program that has been designed for you. Let yourself get involved in it. Understand that fear is holding us back. Understanding and courage is going to enable us to break through that barrier.
Now, you know, everything that we've covered up till this point is going to help you understand this particular lesson. How many of you have set goals in the past and you come right up, but the fear inside stops you and you back away? How many of that happened to? Everyone has experienced that. You know, Abraham Maslow one time said you will either step forward into growth or you'll step back into safety. That safety could be a prison. Is Janet Hall in our audience? Is Janet here? Janet was in a seminar recently, and she gave me a poem. And she said, would you like to have this? And I read it, and I said, yeah, I sure would. And this is the first time I've shared it with anybody, but I don't know who wrote it. Janet might have wrote it. She didn't say whether she had or not. But at any rate, I got her name, and I marked it on the poem. And I am indebted to her for it because it's so good. In a moment, you will be too. Here we're talking about risks. This is incredible. It says to laugh is to risk appearing the fool. To weep is to risk appearing sentimental. To reach out to others is to risk getting involved. To show your feelings is to risk exposing yourself. To place your ideas, your dreams before the crowd is to risk their loss. To love is to risk not being loved in return. To hope is to risk pain. To try is to risk failure. But risk must be taken. It absolutely must be taken, because the greatest hazard in life is to risk nothing. The person who risks nothing does nothing and has nothing. You may avoid suffering and sorrow, but you simply cannot learn, feel, change, grow, live, or love. Chained by your certitudes, you will be a slave. Only the person who risks is free. That'll take on even more meaning as I get into this lesson. I have here a newsletter that come from a very dear friend of mine. He's a minister in Atlanta, Jay Dishman. And I used to go and listen to Jay every weekend because I liked his ideas. I liked his way of communicating his ideas. He put them in terms that you could take them and you could use them. He said, recently I visited Alcatraz prison. Once it housed the most hardened of criminals. Today it's open for tours under the direction of the United States Parks Department. Many men have tried to escape Alcatraz, but no one is known to have succeeded. As I listened to the tour guide explain the impossibility of escape, I thought of other prisons equally as confining as Alcatraz, but where the doors are never locked, no guards walk the walls, escape is encouraged and, in fact, possible. And he said that prison is habit. You want to really be consciously aware of what you're doing. Is it a habitual thing you're doing every day? Is that what's controlling your life, your destiny? Or are you choosing and going in the direction of your dreams? He said our habit of thinking about ourselves and our environment is either a jail or a paradise. We just have to look around us to see people who are rich emotionally and materially because they think and feel rich. We also see people who are laden with emotional and material debt because they think lack. Some are inspired with vision. Others, unfortunately, are encumbered by doubt. Some are moved by ambition. Others are paralyzed by fear. Some feel free to change. Others feel safer in monotony. Some reach for the mountaintops. Others huddle in the pits. Some seek opportunity. Others just wait for it to knock. The sad fact is that more people are confined by their thoughts than are freed by them. Negative thinking shuts us in a prison. But there is a way out. Jay goes on to say, the Apostle Paul said, be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Paul knew a lot about prisons, both physical and mental. He emphasized the mental prison by knowing we get exactly what we set ourselves up to experience. And that's exactly what John was talking about a moment ago. Now, before I get into the real important part of this letter, or of this particular lesson, I want to go back and touch on something that we covered a moment ago, but I didn't go into it too deeply. Now, let's stop and think. Here's your mind. Most of us are conditioned, and remember what conditioning is, nothing but a mass of habits. We're conditioned to take all of our information from our sensory factors. We have been programmed on a physical level from the time we're children. Look at me, listen to this. Don't you see that? And that's how we're trained and conditioned to learn. So it's natural that we should let our material, our physical, or our results control our thinking. Now we know there are two polarities. I pointed out on this side is ignorance, and its polar opposite is knowledge. Now an ignorant person does not understand that they can operate with their intellectual factors, they can choose the picture and get emotionally involved, and they can see the results come about in their life. They don't understand that they're letting their results control their thinking. So they set a goal, but then they look for the signals that it's going to happen. Where they start to look at the empty bank account, the wealth, it's no good. It's not there. We don't know if we're going to have enough money to keep going. And what we do at that point, we forget our goal and we start to worry. And then we doubt ourselves, and it's a negative experience. It's a psychic disease. That worry instantly and automatically turns into an emotional state called fear. Now keep in mind, you're working with the central nervous system. It is the most incredible electrical system in the universe. This can happen in less than a millisecond, and there's 1,000 of them in a second. That energy that we call fear, that negative energy must be expressed through the only medium it can be expressed through, and that's this thing that you live in, your physical body. And it expresses itself in a negative vibration that's more commonly known as anxiety. I had someone talk to me here just about an hour ago about anxiety. That's the cause of anxiety. Worry isn't the cause. Fear is not the cause. Ignorance is the cause. Not knowing. Most of us are afraid to admit our ignorance. We're all ignorant. I admit my ignorance freely when it come to doing some plumbing yesterday morning at about 4:45 or something like that. I admit my ignorance when it comes to tuning up a car. I'm absolutely useless. In fact, I'm ignorant in most areas. I just know how to do what I'm doing. But I don't even want to learn how to do anything else. You do this well enough, you can hire somebody to do everything else. You know. Develop your strengths, manage your weaknesses. How do we eliminate ignorance? It's very basic and very simple. We study. We study and we develop understanding. And the understanding tells us, quit let your outside world, don't let your outside world, don't let previous or present results control your thinking. Visualize what you want. Get emotionally involved with it. The understanding leads to faith, and the faith manifests on the physical plane as health or well-being. You can literally transform the state of health that your body's in. I've seen people that close to death's door change it. I've watched people who are in terrible state literally change your life. I keep telling people how much I've changed, and I know that some of you, if you just hear for the first time, you never knew me before, you'd say, wow, he's saying that's good copy for the seminar. Had you go talk to my mother. I got to the point where she was the only one that had even any hope that I'd ever wake up. I was like the principal that had 2 good reasons to go to school at 40. I mean, I was 26 and I still didn't know. John was exactly the same. Just an absolute mess. Beautiful person, but he didn't know it. I was, but I didn't know it. I want to take just a moment to introduce John's parents, because they're here today. They're sitting right over here. They're very good friends of mine. Why don't you stand up for a minute, Mr. and Miss Canary? Let's give them a real good hand, all right? They are 2 of the nicest people you ever want to meet. And Mrs. Canary's not at all reluctant to tell me to mind my own business or keep my place. I mean, she's always given me hell for something. But you know something? She's an honest person, and so is he. And if you were to go talk to them, they would probably tell you that they just can't believe the change that's taken place in John. And it's done it through these ideas. And you know, whatever it is, you can change. And you know, the beautiful part, they probably enjoy the change more than John does. No, they really do. Because I think when changes like that take place in our loved ones, it makes us feel so good inside. You know? So not only do you benefit from the change, so does everyone else benefit from the change. Now, we're going to run through a mental process that every one of us have experienced. I'm not going to talk to you about something you do not know about. I'm going to talk to you about something you do know about. You may not know how to stop what happens, but it's happened to every one of us. It's happened to you. Now let's go back and draw on the information that we started with. In our little life, we had all kinds of ideas programmed in here. John talked about that quite a while ago. Then we began to think. What kind of thoughts would we think? We would think thoughts that were in harmonious vibration with the conditioning we already had. It's natural for a person to think X-type thoughts, X being the unknown factor. So it would apply for all of us. If our mind is programmed, our subconscious is programmed with X-type conditioning, it would make sense that we would think X-type thoughts. Why would we? Well, by thinking X-type thoughts, those thoughts, when they're mixed with the conditioning, set up a vibration that we're used to. That's called the comfort zone. It might not give you the results you want, and in fact probably won't. But it's comfortable. Do you know you can be comfortable getting very inferior results? You can be very comfortable in a relationship you totally dislike. Why do you think people stay together that don't even like each other? It's comfortable. It's comfortable. It's also dumb. Yeah. Why do you think a person stays on a job they don't like? It's comfortable. They're used to it. There's no risk. They know how to do it. Going after the bigger job might be scary. Keep thinking. Now, let's bring this ahead. We said this was bondage. It's prison. Now, this is what we call reason. Remember what we said here? We have sensory factors. You can see, hear, smell, taste, touch. Here we've got the person with the X-type conditioning, X-type vibration, that produces X-type behavior, that produces X-type results. Let's say the X-type results represent $18,000 a year income. That's about where it was, isn't it, Al? Yeah, remember we also said we have the ability to choose thinking this way or this way. We can think of how we can get what we want, or we can spend time thinking of why we can't. We also said as long as an idea was just here in our conscious mind, it would have absolutely no effect on how we felt or anything we did, because it's right here in our consciousness. Now, this is also called the educated mind or the intellectual mind. This is the part that reasons, that thinks. Now, do you know you could put a Y-type idea in there, Y being much better than the old conditioning. See, this conditioning represents an $18,000 income. I'm going to use money because everyone can relate to it. Now, I'm going to ask Al, because we talked about Al here a little earlier. Al walked over at the break, and Al gave me a sheet of paper. Now, I haven't asked Al if he'd talk about this, because I want this to be spontaneous, and I also want it to verify something that I'm almost certain of. In fact, I'll be shocked if I don't get the answers that I'm expecting. I really will. Because I know so much about how the mind operates in the human personality. Al, let's let the Y represent the $500,000 income. And the X-type conditioning represents the $18,000 income. Now, Al, this conditioning caused you to do what you were doing to give you that income. All right? Did you like what you were doing, Al? Were you excited about it?
Not 100%, no.
Not 100%. You weren't really turned on with it.
No.
Marge, were you excited about what Al was doing?
No.
Al had an escort service. That wasn't really fair, but they're pretty good heads, so I think they'll go along with that. At least Al probably would, even if Marge wouldn't. Marge, how did you like living on the $18,000 income?
I didn't.
You didn't? You didn't take many interesting trips on the 18K, did you?
None.
No, none. Bet you cooked in a lot, did you?
All the time.
All the time. Now, Al, let me come back to you again. How long had you thought about changing before you actually made the change?
For quite a few years.
I was right.
A few.
I was right. Even righter than I expected. Quite a few years. I never thought it'd be quite a few years, but at any rate, it was quite a few years. Did you think of doing what you're doing now?
It did cross my mind, but I couldn't get myself up to.
Couldn't get yourself up to do it, could you?
To doing it.
You got a
Exactly.
brother that had been doing well for quite a few years, doing what you're doing now, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
And what it was, I believe, was fear that was holding me back from going up.
That's exactly what it was, and that's what we're going to talk about here. Now, you see, the strange part about this is, the guy that I was praising for being the great manager is his brother. Nino is Al's brother. Now, I have known Nino for 8 years. Nino was in the first seminar I did when we moved from Atlanta to Toronto. And it was an odd situation. It was his birthday, and his wife made him go. And he's told me on many occasions that he's not sorry he went. Wouldn't be very nice of him to tell me anything else at this point, would it? All right. Now, I know what Nino's done. Nino is a risk taker, no question about it. You both have the same mother and father, Al? You both do.
Absolutely.
So you see, we often say a baby is a born risk taker. Here's two people from the same parents. One's out there taking the risks, making the dough, doing the big deals. The other's doing something they're not really excited about on $18,000 a year. Wife has to cook in all the time, doesn't go out. Didn't like what he was doing, wasn't excited about it. He's thinking about doing what his brother's doing for years, but he doesn't do it. Is that uncommon? That is not uncommon at all. Not uncommon at all. You've probably experienced that in your family. I see it happening every day. Now, if we could keep focusing on this, the Y-type idea represents what you're doing now. And every time you thought about it, you probably thought about the compensation that it would give you. Is that correct?
Exactly.
You never dreamed it would be $500,000 a year, though.
Never did, no.
Never. Have you any idea how many years it would take you to earn $500,000 at 18K?
Several.
And your hair wouldn't be black and curly, my friend. It would be long and gray. Now, if you had any left. But you see, it's generally much better than you ever even think it will be. Now, I want you to keep thinking about Al's situation. Al is a real estate agent. And we've already found out that there's only 13 out of 20,000 that are doing a job that may be a little superior to his. So you could say Al is one of the best in the world at what he does. But he had to think about doing it for years. Now, when he was thinking about it, he probably thought about the nice cars, the nice trips. And I was looking at Marge. I was just about blinded by the ring on her finger. I mean, I don't think you got that on 18K. You'd had a couple of years' wages for low in there. Now, let's come back again and focus here. Here's Al, X-type energy, X-type vibration, X-type behavior, X-type results, and he gets to the point where he's thinking, I think I'm going to do that, but before you can act on a Y-type idea, it must go through that part of your personality. You'll never act on an idea without passing it through here. It is the power that doeth the work. Remember that? John brought that out in the last lesson. And every time he went to impress that idea, the Y-type idea on the X-type energy, you know what that did? That instantly and automatically affected his entire nervous system. It set up a chaotic vibration. We'll call it a foreign vibration. It's an X-Y-type vibration, mental conflicts, and instantly and automatically doubt, fear, and anxiety just zoomed through his system. And it happened so fast, he didn't even know what was happening. When that feeling took over, he did not know how to control it, so he did what Maslow said. He stepped back into safety. Then he started to reason with it. Who needs the big cars anyway? Damn things just cost too much money. What's Marge need that big ring for? A little band of gold is all she ever really needed. Those prices in those rich restaurants are ridiculous anyway. Lights go down, the price goes up. Kids are well fed and looked after. We're well dressed. We have a warm home. Besides, Nino loses every now and then, too. I don't really need it. You've got to justify staying here some way. So you do something called rationalizing. That's rationing lies to your mind. Could Al break through this terror barrier? Not only could, but he did. But he did. Here's the X-type energy. Here's the Y-type idea. And he started to get emotionally involved. Did he create doubt, fear, anxiety? Yeah, he sure did. But I'm going to tell you what's different. He started to do it with understanding. Understanding. You know what that led to? That led to freedom. Now, I want you to watch here for a moment. What did Al say? He said just after he made the change, he came to the seminar. He started to use the tapes. I met young Christina yesterday, and apparently they're inundating her brain with the tapes. And I'm going to tell you something, Christina, it's going to pay off for you. It's going to pay off for you. John was mentioning about Brian's personality. I was happy to hear him say that. Brian's my son. I was going to tell John it's in the genes, but I know that's not right. Do you know that I started to study these ideas just a few months before Brian was born? And a big change took place in my life just a few months after he was born. What did Zucker say? There's 2 classes, no class in first class. I made up my mind that I was going to program some ideas into their little minds that were a lot different than the ones I had programmed into mine. Now, this is saying nothing against my parents. They gave me everything they had. You cannot give a person something you do not have. If we traveled, I had them fly in the front of the plane, first class. We would take them to nice restaurants to eat, because I had to learn after I was an adult how to eat in a nice restaurant. I didn't know which piece of cutlery to pick up first. I would be asked if I wanted something. When the waiter or waitress first came, I didn't even know what the word meant. I would take them to beautiful resorts. I was going into New York one time, and I took Brian and Raymond with me. John and I had limos picking us up, stretches, taking us everywhere. If you're going to travel, you might as well be comfortable. I had Joe, the guy who used to take us in New York all the time. I said, Joe, I want to keep you for the day. I'll bring the boys down. I want you to take them around. Had them drive them all around. I said, take them down to the Battery. Wake them up. You know. So he took them to all these places in the stretch limo. Moved to England. Moved to the United States. Always traveling. They always were in nice cars. I don't think they know what a used car means. Nice homes. Nice clothes. That's all I give them. The homes they bought, they bought. They earned the money, and they bought them. Somebody say, oh, wow, yeah, it's Proctor's kid. He can afford to buy a couple of houses. You're right, he can. But not because he's my kid, because he got the ideas. He and Leslie study it all the time. Colleen does what she wants. Raymond does what she wants. I never went to college. Nobody in our family ever went to university. So there was never much talk about going to university. Linda helped me with that idea. We didn't talk to them whether they were going to go. We talked to them where they were going to go. See, we had them making a choice. Which one do you want to go to? Not do you want to go or not. And if that's all you talk to them about, they make a choice. Colleen chose Illinois State. Raymond chose Wilfrid Laurier. Now he tells me he wants to be a lawyer. He's in his last year in Wilfrid Laurier. So I guess we're locked in for another 4 years. But I treat education, as being almost sacred. As long as he'll go, I'll pay. Al didn't have the benefit of that kind of teaching, and neither did I. Do you know what he did? He did the same thing I did. He came to seminar and he got involved with those tapes. And he listened to them over and over and over again. And if you're watching this videotape, don't think just because you hear what I'm saying and you can repeat a bit of it that you know it. You want to watch it over and over and over again. You get one of the most magnificent tools in your hand that you'll ever get your hands on. Now I want this to represent X-type conditioning in your life. Let it represent X-type conditioning. Let this represent the Y-type idea. Now watch. You're watching with your eyes. You don't see any change, do you, Reen? Al, do you see any change?
No, I don't.
You don't see any change. But your understanding tells you that it's not as dark as it was before I put the clear water in. Doesn't it? You see, as you impress the bigger idea, the old conditioning becomes weaker. And as we keep doing it, it becomes weaker. And it becomes weaker. And it becomes weaker. But you see, our eyes deceive us. We can't see any difference. But every time we watch the video, every time we turn on the set, every time we review the paragraph with the tape, every time we watch this idea being explained, the old conditioning becomes weaker and weaker and weaker. And if we will keep impressing it, even although it appears that everything outside is remaining the same, our inner eye of understanding tells us it's not the same, that it is becoming weaker. Now I want you to think, even although you experience some doubt and fear and anxiety, you understand what's causing that. It's the change that's taking place in the mind. That's what Paul talked about, the renewal of the mind. Now, Thoreau one time said something that is so rich with truth. He said, if you will endeavor to live the life you have imagined. That's the new idea, the Y idea. He said, any person who advances confidently, and you've got to do it with confidence, and that comes with understanding. Any person who will advance confidently in the direction of their dream and endeavor to live the life they imagined, they will meet with success unexpected in common hours. Now watch this, because one day you're going to wake up and everything will have changed. Just like that. And your life will never be the same again. That's the way it works. That's called awakening. And that's what Al's life looks like now, isn't it, Al?
Absolutely.
How did John start out? Talking about Lee. He said, I couldn't give you what I've got because you got too much of what you got. But if you work with it just a little bit at a time, I guarantee you'll bust through that terror barrier that we have written there on page 49, and you will experience the freedom that, I might add, you were born into. Have you ever wondered why you're attracted to the baby? It doesn't matter the race, the religion, the creed, the culture. None of those things matter. If a mother or father standing in front of you in the shopping line, you've got the strongest urge to reach out and touch that baby. Sometimes you'll want to hold it and just kiss it. You will. Sometimes you cannot contain yourself, even though you don't know the people. You'll look hesitantly at the parent just so you can touch the little baby's hand and let it hold your little finger. Why do you think that is? Why do you think there's such a strong magnetic pull? Come on. was Kipling said that, I love those little people, and it is no small thing when they who are so fresh from God love me. You see, we are created in a magnificent vibration, in an absolutely magnificent vibration. Born risk takers. Free. That conditioning takes place after birth. You can change it. It takes guts. It takes goals. Now, do you know something? You're sitting there watching this, and you're thinking, by God, I'm going to change something. I had a man telling me this here today at one of the breaks. He says, I'm getting so excited I can hardly contain myself. He said, I just feel so happy. I said, you want to know something? You keep watching this and you keep watching this and you'll get happier and happier, and you're going to get to the point where you think, oh, I couldn't get any happier, and then you'll get happier. That's exactly the way it works. Abundance is our birthright. Now, if you're going to change, you know there's only one time to do it. Right now. Right now. Right now. You see, Al Spazzeri made a decision. Regardless of the fear, regardless of the doubt, regardless of the flack from his buddies at work, he made a decision. And he made the decision on page 50, at the top of the page that Gerda was talking about. He said, are you in earnest? Then seize this very minute what you can do, or even dream you can do, and begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Only engage, and the mind will grow heated. Begin, and the work will be completed. Emerson said, do the thing, and you'll get the energy to do the thing. You can go busting through this, and I'm going to tell you, with this understanding that you've got, then that you're heightening, that you're developing higher and higher and higher again, you can turn it into an awareness and enthusiasm. It does not have to be a terror barrier. It can just excite the daylights out of you. In our company, we have a plan. We have a plan. And it's a big one. This seminar that you're sitting in is going to be marketed throughout the United States, throughout New Zealand, throughout Australia, throughout England. Do you know that in the next, I'll say 14 months, taking into consideration the post-production of this particular seminar, we will have 6,700 people selling, 750 people. That's 6,750 people selling this throughout North America alone. We have added approximately 70 people in Canada since March. Good people. Really good people. That's our idea. Does it scare us? Yeah, sometimes. Do we doubt? Yeah, sometimes. Do we experience some anxiety? Yep, sometimes. Some more than others. But that wouldn't stop us. Because we understand. If we advance confidently in the direction of our dreams and endeavor to live the life we've imagined, we're going to meet success unexpected in common hours. Now, you've got to make a commitment. We made a commitment. It's not an accident we attracted all these people. It's not an accident we're doing what we're doing. It's not an accident this program is going to be in millions of hands very, very shortly. This particular program on video is going to be one of the most professional productions that is on the market today. The seminar already is. There's nothing that will equal this seminar. Not in the market today. We've had doctors, we've had lawyers, psychiatrists, some of the most senior executives in some of the largest companies in the world tell us there's nothing will equal this. And I know why. I know why. Because we're giving an understanding to a person of who they really are. We're not just giving them some technique that's intellectual or physical or academic. Power's within you. You've got to write out your commitment. A commitment is a directive to yourself. It's a directive to yourself. I remember one time reading somewhere that the mark of a superior performer is a person that can give themselves a command and then follow it. That's what's on that page. Now, on page 51, we say, remember, it makes no difference whether your goal is starting a new business, buying a new automobile, a position at work, setting a sales record, or earning an honors mark in school. Whatever it may be, you must step out boldly and pursue it. Look at the win that Al Spazzeri is enjoying today, and he is just starting. It's like Hapsidandanak in that letter. This show is only one small step in the direction of greater things you can do, many of which are beyond your wildest dreams. And I would imagine that Al sometimes has to shake his head, and I would imagine Marge does too. Would you agree with that?
100%.
100%. And you know something, Al? The beautiful part is you are always capable of doing it. You are capable of doing what you're doing now when you are earning $18,000 a year, but you weren't aware of it. Give him another hand. I mean, he's made a big step. All right? What did we say right at the start of the lesson? Motivation and education leads to wise decisions and intelligent action, and enables us to enjoy the prosperity which is our birthright. Now we say, keep reminding yourself that you have tremendous reservoirs of potential within you. We're on page 51. And therefore you are quite capable of doing anything you set your mind to. You really can. I don't care what the cynics tell you. Quit listening to some of your peers. Want to shoot a better golf game? Quit golfing with your friends. Now all you must do is figure out how you can do it, not whether you can or not. Just think of how you can. Forget about whether you can or not. You know you can. You just have to find out how. Begin to visualize yourself as a risk taker, and then starting telling yourself that you are one. Become fully aware of the good vibrations you get simply by virtue of practicing these simple exercises. Now here we are at the page of top of page 52. I've been quoting William James, or James Allen. Through every lesson, I think I've given you this quote. Your circumstances may not be congenial, but they will not long remain so if you perceive an ideal and strive to reach it. I still have not figured out how Leslie and Brian even bought that first house. I haven't figured it out. Because if they had any money, they had it well buried. That was before they started to earn anything. Then they started to work with Nino, and the income skyrocketed. So I don't even have to think of how they bought the second one. I'm not quite sure how many they're going to buy. But I know one thing. If you haven't got much, and you want to get a lot in real estate, you sit down and talk to them, they'll tell you. That you're going to make some major exciting moves. You've been thinking about them. You're committing yourself to it. When are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? You've got to create a sense of urgency. I'm going to do it right now.
I wanted to make $250,000 in a year. And I achieved that goal. And when Bob says, be careful what you think because you will surely become it, we did $420,000 that year. I came back with the suggestion of Sam Kalanick. Sam is with the Mattall organization, KM in the States. And Sam suggested that I come back to the seminar and get back into the Born Rich book because that's where the success came from the beginning. And I'm sure that with the Proctor seminar that I've had here today, that I know that I'm going to reach my new goal of $1.3 million is what I want to make this year.
To earn $500,000 in the next 12 months.
I came to Bob Proctor's seminar 4 years ago. At that time, I set my goal to make $40,000 a year salary. And after 4 years, making about 3 times that, I've come back again because I want to make it triple or quadruple.
I want honors. I want to graduate with honors.
We're going to talk about the fine line between winning and losing. And as it says in your book, it's just as fine as the razor's edge. So let's give John a warm welcome so he comes up to lead us through this next lesson.
Turn over to the razor's edge on 53 at the top. You see the razor's edge. How many people had the opportunity to see the razor's edge? There was 2 movies, the old one, then the new one. I believe Don Murray played the part in the recent movie. Bill Murray, thank you very much. You know, it's interesting in that particular movie, it's pretty well the story of someone trying to find the meaning to life, the meaning of success. And he ended up in the Himalayas there talking to some great guru. And as he got way up in the mountains there, he met Shirley MacLaine on the way, had a conversation, and he went on, continued on. And, you know, as he met this here great master, he asked him, you know, what is the secret to life? Well, what is this thing all about? What is the difference in winning and losing, and success and failure? And I'll never forget, you know, the analogy went something like this. He said, you know, there's a big path going down here, he said, along this mountain. And he said, the path is very, very small. And as you walk, you can tilt this way, and as you walk, you can tilt that way. But he said, the person that gets to the other end, they're walking a path that is as fine as a razor's edge. So the real difference in winning and losing, he said, is as fine as a razor's edge. You know, last night I just watched something that we may never again watch in an entire lifetime, when Gibson came to the plate. You could feel the excitement. And it was master against master. Eckersley against Gibson. Now, you know what's most interesting about Gibson coming to the plate? Why would anyone expect Gibson to hit a home run at that time when he has probably the lowest batting average in the playoffs in this series of anybody on that team? Well, you see, Gibson will do what he has to do when he has to do it. You think about this. Do you know that the people who come to these seminars the most are the ones who need it the least? The ones who do not come are the ones who need it the most. Now, the real razor's edge difference works this way for you and for me. Many, many years ago, there's a great story told about a guy named Charles Schwab, who was the president of Bethlehem Steel and eventually put together the package called U.S. Steel. And he was approached by a guy named Ivy Lee. Ivy Lee walked in and he said, Mr. Schwab, I believe that we have an idea that could dramatically increase your business, he said, beyond where it is. And the most interesting thing about that is that when Schwab said to him, well, we already know what it is we should be doing, but if you can show us a better way of getting it done, we'll listen to you and pay you anything within reason. Well, Ivy Lee took out a sheet of paper and he started to write on it. And he said, now I want you to get out a sheet of paper. Now he said, what I'd like you to do, Mr. Schwab, is write down the 6 most important things you have to do tomorrow. Schwab did as requested. Now he said, first thing tomorrow morning, I want you to take out that list. And he said, you'll have them numbered in priorities. Priority A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now he said, I want you to work on number 1. And don't go to number 2 until you complete number 1. He said, then you try the idea, put it to work for 60 days, send me a check for whatever you think the idea is worth. 60 days later, Ivy Lee received a letter stating that the lesson had been the best he had ever learned from a business point of view. And he enclosed a check for $25,000. Now I want you to write down the 6 most important things you have to do tomorrow. That could be the razor's edge difference for you. Now you put it to work and in 60 days you can send me a check for $25,000. But you see, there is such a small difference in the people that are actually coming up with the results versus the people that are not getting the results. What is the difference in person B and we'll say person A? What is the basic difference? I mean, they both have, we'll say, the same aptitude, same education, maybe come from the same neighborhood, may work in the same company, they may have even gone to the same schools. But it seems that person A, they just keep on achieving, even though they have great adversities, but person B never really gets off the launching pad. What is the basic difference in these two people? Well, I believe it's the razor's edge. That there is such a fine line that separates people. Now, I want you to consider this. Wade Boggs was the leading hitter in the major leagues, in the American League in the last season, and perhaps for the last 5. He ended up with a batting average of about .358. The person who was the 10th highest hitter in the major leagues was somewhere around 301. What is the real difference in Wade Boggs and the person who was in 10th place? Consider it. For every 10 times that Boggs goes to bat, he gets 3.58 hits. The person who is hitting 301 out of 10 times at bat gets 3.01 hits. The real difference in these two people is not even a half a hit for every 10 times they go to the plate. But Boggs is earning $1.7 million a year, and I noticed the 10th place hitter was earning about $280,000 a year, even though there's a small difference in the number of hits they get, less than a half a hit. The difference in income is absolutely phenomenal. You go back to a day when the greatest base stealer in the history of the major leagues, a guy by the name of Ty Cobb. Ty Cobb, we remember, as a fearless individual that always played to win. But do you know that Ty Cobb, he had what is called a stolen base percentage of 71%. In the same year that Cobb was recognized for his greatness, there was a man named Carey, and I'll guarantee you few people have ever heard of him. Carey had a stolen base percentage of 98%. Do you know he had 53 attempts? He was only caught twice, which meant he had 51 stolen bases. 51 stolen bases. Why is it we remember Cobb so well? Tell you why. It wasn't because Cobb was caught 38 times. 38 times Cobb was caught stealing second base, or third, or home. That's not why we remember Cobb. Cobb stole 96 bases. That's not why we remember Cobb. Someone has broken his record. Do you know why everyone remembers the great Ty Cobb? Is because he made 134 attempts. Was the razor's edge difference that Cobb was a better base stealer? Or was it because he made more attempts than this man Carey? That was the real razor's edge difference. Now, I'm going to give you one simple little formula that will act as the razor's edge difference for you. Just one. That's all, just one. Then I want to cover the book, and we'll get into the last two lessons with Robert. Now, here it is. The common denominator of success. The very simple formula, not an easy one, but a very simple one. It works like this. A man wrote a marvelous little book, 20 pages, and he entitled it The Common Denominator of Success. And he said the common denominator of success in his business, your business, my business, any business, is in forming the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do. Now think about this. Failures, this individual is influenced in pleasing methods only, whereas this person, the success type individual, they're influenced by pleasing results only. They have formed the habit of doing things that this person does not like to do. Think about it. Are you influenced by pleasing results? Or are you influenced by pleasing what is called methods? What are you influenced by? Are you influenced by where you're going? Or are you influenced in defending where you are? Because the razor's edge difference could be just one simple action that you do every single day. The 6 most important things that are going to move you in the direction of your goal. And that's basically what it comes down to. Let's look at this and see what we come up with on page 53, because we promised we'd get you out of here by 5 o'clock. It says you are likely 1 inch, 1 step, 1 idea away from turning on to the boulevard of beauty in your life. It has often been said that that line which separates winning from losing is as fine as a razor's edge, and it really is. Somerset Maugham wrote an entire book entitled A Razor's Edge, and Darryl F. Zanuck spent $4 million producing a movie which had the same title. Both of these great people, author and movie maker alike, knew there wasn't a big difference among people. There was only a difference in the things that they accomplished. And that was the theme of the movie as well as the book. One person just about starts a project. Well, are you one that just about starts it? Or are you the person that actually gets it started and completes it? One individual almost completes a task, but the other completes it. One student nearly passes the exam, the other person passes it. And although the difference in their marks may be only 1 percentage point out of 100, it is that 1 percentage point that makes all the difference in the world. Now turn the page. Now, you could spend some time reading page 54. But you see, the whole idea is not in what you read on 54, not what you read in Born Rich, not what you listen to from the tape in Born Rich. The difference is whether or not you are prepared to write out a list of actions that are razor edge activities and then make a commitment to do them. Remember yesterday I mentioned the word excellence? Excellence is that fine line. It is only a commitment to completion. That's all excellence means. It's a commitment to completion. So you see, it doesn't matter how many books you read. It doesn't matter how many seminars you go to, how many tapes you hear, how many experiences you've had. The difference is you know what you have to do. There isn't one person in here that cannot intellectually comprehend what it is they have to do and write it down as a razor's edge activity. As a razor's edge activity. Anytime that I mention this 9 a.m. idea that I just want to share with you for a moment, and I look at a guy up there named Grant Sylvester. He knows it as well as anybody. But I can remember when earlier on, about 18 years ago, Bob would talk about the 9 a.m. call. In other words, about being in front of people at 9 a.m. every day. And you know, I tried that one time. And they say that trying is failure with honor. But I didn't try it. I made a commitment it was going to work. There's a big difference. And you know, I couldn't begin to tell you some of the rewards that I've enjoyed from that razor's edge activity just by getting started maybe an hour early. Do you know that if you start something an hour early, or if you work an hour later, do you know that's 9 40-hour weeks that you enjoy each additional year? Just 1 more hour is a razor's edge activity that'll give you 9 40-hour weeks of productivity in your life, no matter what area of your life you're talking about. When are you going to do something about it? When are you going to sit down, take this page, page 55, and actually list some things that you are definitely going to do, which are relatively simple things, and again, they're not easy. Anybody that ever tells us something is easy, they say that because they don't do it. There isn't anything that's easy. You know, it's interesting how last night you look on the dugout and they're talking about where is Kurt Gibson. Obviously, he's not dressed tonight. A number of years ago in Michigan, Kurt Gibson was having problems hitting left-handed pitchers because he's a left-handed hitter. And he was having such a hard time that he actually went and he took a course on visualization because it was affecting how he hit right-handed pitchers. Let me tell you what happened. Not only did he start hammering right-handed and left-handed pitchers, but last night what you experienced was a man who made a decision and who made a commitment to completion. He come out there in 2 gimpy legs in pain. He had a hard time running around the bases. But did you notice that in pain he was in joy? Did you notice in pain he was in happiness? Did you notice in pain he was in victory? Did you notice in pain that he was a winner? He knows the difference as far as the razor's edge is concerned. I don't know if he knows how to verbalize it, but I can tell you this. He knows how to act on it. He knows how to act on it. He could have said, Tommy, I don't feel good enough to go. Tommy, I don't think I can make it. Tommy, you should use someone else. No, he said, Tommy, I'm available when you need me. When the reporters asked him, why would you even think of playing with such pain and such injuries? He looked at the reporter and he said, have you ever played baseball? So what is the razor's edge activity for you? On page 56, just to complete this, if you're employed in a sales capacity, consider the dynamic sales presentation which you could be developing in a month or two. If you simulated a sales presentation with an imaginary prospect or possibly one of your associates every day for 1 hour, imagine what would happen if you practice your craft every day. Imagine what would happen if you practice your craft as a parent, if you practice your craft in your profession, if you practice your craft in your family life, in your personal life, and with your friends. Can you imagine what would happen? Well, you see, if you're only going to try it for a week, I want to tell you now, don't do it, because the frustration will be worse than ever. If you're going to try it for 2 weeks, maybe. But if you want it to really work, I'll tell you this. You give the next 90 days of your life, the very best you've got, and I'll guarantee you one thing. Life will give you everything you want for the rest of your life. 90 days. I could go through this, and at the bottom, it's asking you to make a commitment. I'm going to suggest that sometime this week, and you know, tomorrow you're going to be very tired. But I'm going to suggest tomorrow, just give some thought to what we were covering today in the razor's edge, because the difference is action, the difference is activity, the difference is doing. The difference is really doing. And then you make a commitment on what you're going to do with this page. And don't allow others, don't allow events to control your activity. Don't allow that. I kind of like, the guy who was walking back and forth in front of the bed on a Sunday night, and his wife said, are you ever going to come to bed? It's midnight. He said, I can't. He said, why not? He said, I'm having a problem. He said, the mortgage is due tomorrow, and we have no money in the bank. She said, isn't that so-and-so down the street where our bank manager lives? Isn't that the bank we deal with? Isn't he the manager? So that's right. Went over, she picked up the phone, she called him. She had a few words and hung up the phone. She said, now, will you get into bed? He said, what did you do? He said, I just called the bank manager and let him know that you can't make the mortgage payment tomorrow. He'll be up all night worrying about it. You get to bed. Excellence is a commitment to completion, and that's the difference in the razor's edge activities you're going to get involved in to really make this program work for you.
And I'm sure you can relate that to almost any experience in your life. Whether it be in relationships, the razor's edge may be commitment. Whether it be in selling, the razor's edge may be one more call. Whether it be in just your family life, the razor's edge might be just turning off the television for maybe 1/2 hour each day. For me, in doing the seminars and the things that I've been able to accomplish through the seminars, the razor's edge for me has been persistence. In other words, when I was in doubt, I went to work. When I was in doubt, I went forward. When I wanted to quit, I took one more step ahead. So the razor's edge is always perhaps a decision, and I think that this is probably very, very significant to anyone that we may be sharing with today. But I know that we don't have as many problems as we have decisions to make. And quite often that problem mushrooms only because of the lack of decision. So the razor's edge for a lot of people could be to make a decision even though they don't have a complete set of facts to operate with. Make a decision, and usually by making that decision, the next decision will be revealed to you.
Now on page 55, there's a space there for you to jot down 6, 7, 8 little things that'll make a big difference. I'm not suggesting that you use them all, but at least recognize a half a dozen and then implement them. Remember, right at the beginning of the book, we point out that reading and memorizing isn't going to do you any good. It's understanding and application that's really going to make the difference. So before you proceed any further, make sure that page 55 is complete with your razor edge activities.
Let's have just that one more dimension of energy to bring this in for a landing.
I want you to focus on this sand timer. Let the sand in the glass represent your life. Let the sand in the bottom of the glass represent the past. The sand in the top of the glass will represent the future. Now really think about this. The sand in the bottom of the glass represents the past. Everything that has happened right up to this moment in your life has been absolutely essential to make you the person you are, to prepare you to do whatever it is you're going to do. I'm of the opinion that we never really know what we're preparing ourselves for. But if we're using the right ideas, we can be absolutely certain it's something great. The sand in the top of the glass represents the future. There's absolutely no way that any of us can tell how much sand there is in the top of our glass. You know, I remember my grandmother when I was just a little boy, because she pretty well raised me, she and my mother. But my mother worked all day, and Grandma was the one that was home when we were small. And Grandma came to live with us a year before I was born. My grandfather had passed away a year before I was born. So when I arrived on the scene, Grandma was already there. She would probably have been around 60 at that time. So in my mind, she was a very old lady. Now, I've since changed my attitude about that, but at that time, Grandma was way up there. And you know, every day of my life that Grandma spent with us, I think I heard her say, "I'll soon be gone, dear. I'll soon be gone." Well, you know, it got to a point we thought Grandma was never going to go. Now, we didn't want her to, of course. She was a dear soul. She really was. But Grandma kept saying, "I'll soon be gone." She was 94 when she left. 94. And from the time she was 60 until she was 94, she was saying, "I'll soon be gone." Now, around the same time, I had a young friend of mine, Bob Yates. Bob and I went everywhere. We did everything together. We were, as the saying goes, as thick as thieves. And Bob was 2 or 3 months older than I was, I guess. He got his driver's license 2 or 3 months ahead of me. And I remember Bob had this sort of a panel truck. It was like a sedan delivery. Today, I suppose we would call them vans. But it was on July the 9th, 1951, Bob was coming in the Kingston Road Highway, the highway you would travel on if you were coming from Montreal into Toronto, Canada. And there's one area that some of you would be familiar with where you can either go along onto Danforth or cut down onto Kingston Road. And Bob was cutting on down to Kingston Road, and it was necessary to go under a concrete overpass. And as Bob come down there, wham, just like that, he hit that concrete overpass, and like that, Bob ran out of sand. 16. Now, that was a terrible impact in my life. I'll never forget it. But if you had asked Bob a half hour before that how much sand he had in the top of his glass, he probably would have said half a century for low. He didn't have a half an hour. Now, I choose to believe that we all hope that we're going to go to bed tonight. And we're going to get up tomorrow morning, we're going to go to bed tomorrow night. But none of us know with absolute certainty whether that's going to happen or not. I remember the first speaker I ever heard was Charlie Cullen. And Charlie's late one out doing what I'm doing right now. Right on stage. I suppose when Charlie went on to make the speech that he went on to make, he probably thought he had lots of sand left, but he didn't. And every one of us can tell a story like this. Probably tell a number of them. See, the point is, you don't know how much future you've got. What's gone is gone. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. Some of you have had divorces. Some of you have probably had bankruptcies. Some of you have had terrible things happen in the past. But what's gone is gone. It's in the past. And to spend your time focusing on the past is to spend the only thing that you've got, and that's what's right here, right now, because the sand never stops running. This is all we've got. And to spend your time now thinking of what happened there is making absolute certain that the future is going to be the same as the past. Now, I don't suppose many of us spend a lot of time thinking about that, but a lot of us spend a lot of time making that error. That's an excellent symbol. All you got is now. We're saying here, don't think in reverse. There's a great poem here, Forgive. I remember years and years ago, I suffered with headaches, terrible headaches. I got to the point where I was taking Bufferin for the headaches. Then I got to the point where I was taking Sinutab with codeine for headaches. There was 16 in the bottle, and I got to the point where I was taking 2 bottles a day. As a matter of fact, most times I didn't even remember my head not aching. But I was sort of numb all the time. Of course, with that much junk in you, I guess you couldn't be any other way. And I remember talking to this chap. I was in the Hotel Vancouver, and I was picking up 2 heavy briefcases or suitcases, and I was in a real rush to get to the airport. He said, "What's the matter with you?" He said, "You look like you're going to pass out." And I said, "I feel like I am." Well, he said, "What's the matter?" And I said, "My head is aching so bad, I feel sick to my stomach." Now, some of you suffer with this, and I felt like banging my head against the wall. It was so much pain. He said, "Go and sit down in that chair." And I said, "I don't have time. I got to catch a plane." He said, "Listen, you can always get another plane. You only get one head." He said to me, "Do you know what forgive means?" On the top of page 58, that's the title of the poem, Forgive. And by the way he asked the question, I just thought I probably don't. And I said, "Well, I don't know." He says, forgive means let go of completely, abandon. Just let it go. Unequivocally. No strings attached. Now he said, if you want to rid yourself of headaches, just forgive all thoughts that are on your mind. And you just listen to me. And he put me in a totally relaxed state. I felt better than I had felt for years. If you're suffering from headaches, take the relaxation tape out of your program and commit yourself to listen to it every day for 30 days. And as you let yourself get involved in that relaxation tape, you're going to forgive any thought that comes to your mind. You're going to program your subconscious mind to put your body in a totally relaxed vibration. Because you're going to find that your head is aching because of the things that you're not letting go of. And it's causing tension, and it's causing an abnormal state of vibration of the cells in the brain, which causes the blood to rush to the head. And as you put yourself in a totally relaxed state, you'll soon become programmed to relax. I know that I would not be able to do what I do as often as I do it, and as long as I do it, if I wasn't relaxed. I am just as relaxed here in front of you, or in front of this camera, as if I was sitting in my den patting Ginger, my dog. I am. For Linda's sake, or Libby, you see. We have 2 dogs. They accuse me of favoring one of them. Now, probably because I do. I think Ginger's prettier. Now, study that poem. Study the meaning of it. On page 59, we say you'll never obtain any substantial measure of material wealth if you insist upon living your life as if you are looking back through your rearview mirror on your automobile. Nevertheless, it seems to be a very common error which many people have turned into a habit. Let the dead bury the dead. Let it go. I don't care how bad it was, let it go. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when you look back in retrospect at that terrible thing that's happened, you're going to find it was probably one of the best things that ever happened to you. Advancement of all kinds is preceded by a crisis. The greater the crisis, the greater the opportunity for advancement. Or you could put it another way. You could say, out of all confusion comes order. A higher degree of order than that which existed prior to the confusion. Because you see, the confusion was a learning state. Remember, I was pointing out that business is fun. It really is. I see business as a game. It's a game we're playing, and we play to win. And when we're winning, we're having fun. And when we're losing, we're learning. Let's treat both of the experiences exactly the same. They're learning experiences. Now we say, remember the old adage which says, let the dead bury the dead. Stop looking back on your life and worrying about the things which have already occurred and which you can no longer alter. That's like trying to change the time you got out of bed this morning. You're never going to be able to do it. That stands for eternity. You cannot go back and change it, since you cannot let it go. Pursuing that kind of mental activity will never lead to anything worthwhile, any worthwhile accomplishment in your life. You should understand, moreover, that all accomplishments in your life, you should understand, moreover, that all of the great achievers of the past have been visionary figures. They did with their life what, like Scott was saying, he does with his music. He heard it in here. They see their life in here. They're building visions of a great future. We've got a vision of a great company. We've already got a great company. We want a better one. We serve a lot of people. We want to serve more. And as we do, we receive greater rewards. And because we receive greater rewards, we become more comfortable, more creative, and we can provide more service. It's a beautiful cycle that we're in. Looking into the past is a self-doom fulfilling cycle. You just keep getting it worse and worse and worse. We've all done it, so we know what it's like. These visionary figures were men and women who projected into the future, and they did not belabor over things which had already passed. They thought of what could be rather than what already was, and then they moved themselves into action to bring these things into fruition. That quote at the bottom of the page, I should have actually given the person credit for it that said it. Life is either a series of endings or a series of beginnings, at the bottom of page 59. I went to a church service in Santa Ana, California, and Philip Nicola, great preacher, he preached a sermon on that one day. Life is either a series of endings or a series of beginnings. If you're looking back, it's a series of endings. Look ahead. Something great is coming. Leland Val Vanderwall said something when we were sitting having coffee, and I jotted it down. Every time this guy opens his mouth, he drops a pearl. I'm so wise. He said, let us not look back in anger, nor forward in fear, but around us in awareness. Was there ever depth in that? Let's not look back in anger. Let's quit thinking in reverse. Nor forward in fear, but around us in awareness. Take all the resentments and guilts. You know what it's doing? Resentments and guilt is simply choosing to build a negative idea here over something that someone did to you, and then letting ourselves get emotionally involved in it, and we move into the same vibration. Now think. I don't care how justified you may feel in holding a resentment. It's a dumb game. Ray Stanford used to tell me it was like throwing dust into a strong wind at someone else. You know where the dust is going to end up. You may feel justified, but I'm going to tell you, a person of understanding will not do it. Will not do it. That is an act, a mental act of ignorance. Love them. The law will see that they get their reward for what they did. You don't have to look after that. And as long as you're holding that resentment in your mind, it's like replaying the same thing over and over again. And the same physical experience is taking place. You're moving into that vibration. I had a good doctor friend of mine that says rheumatism or arthritis is nothing but frozen heat. It's dwelling on things like that. Dries up the joints in the body. What's guilt? I've done things in the past I'm not proud of. I'm quite certain you have. Many of you. And they bothered me for a long time. They really did. And I wasn't able to get rid of it. So I went to see a psychiatrist. He ended up working with us. That's true. He helped me, but I helped him too. And just through a series of right questions, I developed an awareness and it was gone. I have absolutely no guilt anymore. I just will not tolerate it. That's looking back at something you did that you thought was wrong in the past and reliving it. And the same vibration takes place. You see, resentment and guilt are very closely aligned. One's directed towards someone else, the other's directed towards yourself. But you're the beneficiary of both, and neither one of them are positive. Most destructive emotions that you could get involved in. There's a great affirmation at the bottom of the page. And anyone that wants to rid themselves of resentment or guilt or a lot of disease, I would suggest you write it out probably 100 times a day. I willingly release the thoughts and things that clutter my mind. They're all the old ones in there that you're not even aware of. And then say, I release whoever it is. Name them all to their highest good. That means happiness, health, and prosperity. Just release them. The person could be dead. It's not the person that's causing the problem. It's the remembrance. It's the idea. I release them to their highest good and me to mine. And you see them happy, healthy, and prosperous. And you see yourself happy, healthy, and prosperous. And then you say, it is so. Thank you, Father. Father being infinite power. I want to suggest on page 61 that you read the story of Patty's Cruise. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I want you to read it. I want you to read it. Because I sat down with her. Patty's a good friend of mine. We're related. We worked together. And she had a definite problem. And over a cup of coffee, I gave her a suggestion that solved the problem. And she learned a great lesson. And any one of you can learn a great lesson from the story that's in here. You're always saying, I'd like to do this, but I can't because... You get the answer there. Now on the next page, on page 62, if you have been guilty of allowing your sales sheet, your bank account, or the x-rays your doctor takes of your body control the way you feel or think or view your sales, your financial position, or your health, I can assure you that just as certain as it's going to get dark tonight, there will not be any marked improvement in your life in any of these areas. There won't be. What did Paul Hutsey tell me? What did he tell you? He's been in the business 38 years. He's been in management 35. When I sat down and talked with him, he had been in the business 24 years, and he had been in management 22. And he said, I know I can get better results, and I don't know why I'm not. I know I'm a good person. I know my people are good people. But he said, I don't know why I'm not doing it. I said, I can tell you in about 15 minutes. I said, Paul, you're thinking in reverse. You're letting the sales sheet control everything in your life, and you're creating more of the same. It's not changing. And I said, you got to quit doing that. You got to realize that the results you're getting has been controlled by the way you think. And I said, what you want to do is keep your mind on a higher image rather than a lower concern. You take this magnificent power and you build the picture in here that you want. And you let yourself get emotionally involved in that picture. And I said, Paul, it'll happen so fast, it'll make your head spin. What did he tell you? In 9 months, he went to the top of the company. 9 months. He had been trying for 22 years to do something. What did Al tell you? 18,000 to 500. I was saying to someone downstairs, you know, I used to read these stories in the books when I first started, and I thought, oh, this can't be true. Go follow these people. Talk to them. That's why we brought Paul Hutsey in here. That's why we've had the various people stand up that we know that changes have taken place and come back to these seminars. And they keep coming back and they keep coming back. That's why you should keep watching what you're looking at. On page 63, these are just action lessons. I want you to take the chapter on Don't Think in Reverse, and I would suggest that you read it over a few times and ask yourself, what did I learn from this chapter? What did I learn from it? I would suggest you take your own voice and you narrate that chapter and the one John just went through on the razor's edge. Put them on tape. You've got a tape in your folder for your own affirmations, your own commitments, and your own goals. Take that tape and record it. Some people come to me and say, there's nothing on this tape. You know what they're saying? I'm not thinking, I'm not reading, I'm not listening, I'm not looking, and I'm not doing what the program tells me to do. Take that tape and record your commitments. Record your goals. Record your affirmations, your positive statements to yourself. And in your own voice, Dave Mifsud was telling me one day, he says, what an excellent idea. He said, your own voice, one that you trust. But Dave was really saying, I trust my own voice. Some people don't, you know, Dave. Read that lesson over and ask yourself what you learned from it. Now, the last lesson is a classic. I talked to a person here, right here in this spot, within the last couple of hours. And I told that person to focus in on this lesson. Focus in on this lesson. Now I want you to think. You want, and I want, greater good here. Positive things to happen. But understand this. I cannot set anything where this lectern stands until I get rid of the lectern. I cannot put anything where that camera is standing until I get rid of the camera. And nor can you put anything where that television set's sitting until you get rid of this television set. You must create a space for the good that you desire. I would hate to guess at the number of people that would love to meet and greet and love and have a meaningful relationship with someone, and they're never going to do it until they let go of that old relationship. Person may be gone, but the idea is still there. You've got to create a space for the good that you desire. You just must do it. And if you don't, you're never going to have that relationship. You want something in your home? We have people that come in and look after our place 2 or 3 times a week. We've got a big kitchen. There's a sofa in there, chair. We haven't liked that sofa or chair for a long time. Linda says, let's create a vacuum. They were gone. Lots of room in our kitchen now, I'll tell you. Nature abhors that vacuum. Only be a period of time until there's new furniture in the kitchen. You got to create a space for it. Create a space. When it comes to furniture and stuff like that, people have garage sales. I just say a silent prayer for them as I'm driving by their house. Having a garage sale is a dumb thing to do. Give it away. Give it away. Most people don't know how to give. Remember I said it should be spontaneous. Here's a beautiful poem by Beer. He said, to get he had tried, yet his store was still meager. To a wise man he cried in a voice keen and eager, pray tell me, how may I successfully live? And the wise man replied, to get, you got to give. To get, you got to give. As to giving, he said, what have I to give? I've scarce enough bread, and of course, one must live. But I would partake of life's bountiful store. Came the wise man's response, then you must give more. The lesson he learned, to get, was forgotten. Think of the number of people out trying to get. Toward mankind he turned with a love new begotten. As he gave of himself in useful living, then joy crowned his days, for he grew rich in giving. I like that lesson. I like giving things. I really do. I get a lot of satisfaction out of it. I've had people tell me from time to time, you give too much away. You couldn't possibly give too much away. What a dumb statement. What a dumb statement. You ought to take part of all you get and put it back where it came from. If a farmer doesn't do that, you're soon going to have a poor farmer. They are what you call dumb farmers. Farmer takes part of his crop, puts it back in the ground. And if you don't take part of all you receive and put it back where you got it from, you're not going to get much more. We hold on to old ideas. Why do we do all these things? We're insecure. We're insecure. Remember how physical we are? We got lots of physical things around us. We feel comfortable. Did you ever watch the advertisement on television that American Express have? See a young couple having a great time, you know, nice music, and all of a sudden, ah! We lost our credit cards! And you hear this voice, you have now American Express. And a calmness comes over them. Did you ever drive downtown, you go to park your car, and you reach for your purse or put your hand in your pocket, and all of a sudden you see the purse on the table in the hall, or yeah, you see the money on the dresser? Feeling of security in here, isn't it? Isn't it strange how we feel secure if we've got a few bucks on us? A little bit of paper? So dumb. Security's an inside thing. It's inside. And the more we learn about ourselves, the less we need all these things around us. Some people are real pack rats. You know? Well, on page 67, we're talking about removing these mental blocks. You see, it not only works with physical things, it works with mental things. Because remember, the physical and the mental, the non-physical, are all the same. And we must create a space for the good that we desire. In the book, you'll see that I dedicate this book to my Aunt Marg Moyer. I love her very much. She and I are very close friends. And Marg and Don, her husband and daughter's family, they came to the seminar. And when Marg first came, she said it was such an awakening for her. She'd always been so subservient, and she never thought that she could have anything. And if she ever learned anything, I'm going to tell you, she learned this law. I was over at her house one day, and she was telling me how much she disliked her drapes. And I said, no, you don't, Marg. If you didn't like them, they wouldn't be there. I said, you only have around you the things you're in love with, in harmony with. She said, well, I don't love them. And I said, well, you really don't get rid of them. I said, have you never learned the law, the vacuum law of prosperity? Boy, I'm going to tell you, she locked into it. She got up and took the drapes down. Don was yelling, we haven't got any money to buy new ones. And I said, it won't be long until you have new ones there, Marg. You'll get sick of living in a fishbowl. She didn't listen to Don. The drapes were gone. I said, give them away. I went over one day, and there was beautiful new shears and new drapes on the window. And she was so happy, and every time she looked at them, she felt good, instead of looking at the old ones and feeling bad. Wasn't too long, I went over there, and all the living room was empty. There was no furniture there. I'm telling you the truth. Then they went through the closet and cleaned the closets out, and pretty soon she had new clothes. Do you know now they live in a beautiful home, brand new home. They got rid of the home. And I remember when they were moving into this beautiful new home, I saw nothing going in one end of the room, and I was looking, I was saying, you know, Marg, the room's going to be a little out of balance. You should put something there. She says, there is something there. And I said, what's that? She's my baby grand piano. I said, what do you mean your baby grand piano? I said, you haven't got a baby grand piano. Oh, yes, I have. It's just not arrived yet. You know. You go into their house today, there's a beautiful baby grand there. You must create a space for the good that you desire. On page 69, I'm going to ask you to write down clothes closet under area. Clothes closet under area. Now, I want you to write down a date within 7 days of today's date. Completion date. Put down a day, could be today, tomorrow, the next day, but within 7 days of completion date. Now, what I'm going to suggest you do is that you test this law. I'm going to suggest you go through your closet, and every piece of clothes or garment you pick up that you do not wear, you get rid of it. You just put it on the floor. And you're going to get to the point where you're going to grab one garment and you're going to have a difficult, it's almost like it's welded to the railing. Because that garment you paid a lot for, and you haven't worn it very often. In fact, you only had it on a couple of times. But you don't like it. It doesn't feel right or it doesn't fit right. But you're thinking, I spent so much on it, it's so good I can't throw it out. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. Completely clean the closet out. Get rid of the shoes. Nice idea, isn't it? That's right. You want a new, I know, I can tell by looking at you, you want a new. I mean, you're just so excited about this. Do you know in a relatively short period of time that closet will all fill up again? You'll say, but where will I get the money? You'll attract it. And you'll get the clothes that you want. There's a young lady sitting right here in the front, Heather. She's just gone through that. And James paid. And then I want you to think of the other areas in your life that you want to get rid of things. Different rooms. Some of you have a sofa you don't like. Get rid of it. Some of you have an automobile that you can't stand. Get rid of it. You won't walk for long. Now on page 70, I want to suggest that you stop and think of some of the ideas that you had locked into your mind when you started to listen to this. I want you to write them down, and on the opposite page, write down the new idea that now you accept as the truth. Make up your mind that you are going to create a vacuum by letting go of that old idea and accepting the new idea. You study that vacuum law of prosperity chapter, and study it, and study it, and study it, and I guarantee you your life will be filled with beauty. Create a space for the good that you desire. I was talking to a manager of a sales operation. He was telling me he wanted more people working in his office. I said, "Do you have an empty desk?" And he said, "No." I said, "You haven't got any space for one." I said, "Create a space for one. Get the desk. Put the phone on it. Put everything there that you need." And I said, "Before long, there'll be somebody behind the desk. And if you doubt me, you try it. If you doubt me, you try it." Now, we're going to bring this thing in for a landing. But before we do, I want to suggest that you watch this at least once a day. You don't have to watch it all, just a little bit. But you know the beautiful part about this is that I have been recognized around the world as having a lot of information on this one subject. And I get very well rewarded for sharing it. I really do. I don't meet many people that know more about this subject than I do. There are people around, but I don't meet many of them. And when you get to that point, your stock goes up. Do you know what always amazed me? I've never studied it very much. I've only studied it a little bit, but I studied it a little bit every day for 27, 28 years. And you'd be amazed just how fast it adds up. It's just like the $20 bill, Andy. $20 today. In a short period of time, it's $1.5 million. Put to work properly. You put these tapes to work properly. Every day, just turn them on for a little bit. Turn some of the junk off that you're walking on that box. Most people watch the best of the worst. They just flip around until they get something they can tolerate. No. Use something that'll really stretch your mind.
Well, here we are, coming to the end of the program. The end of the program is actually the beginning of the program. We've pointed out numerous times that repetition is one of the keys to success. As we went through the Born Rich program, John and I made a number of suggestions. We suggested that you make a commitment and you write your commitment out. Put it in writing. We suggested you make a number of affirmations, positive statements from yourself to yourself. I read one time where it said the mark of a superior performer is an individual that can give themselves a command and then follow it. We recommended that you write your goal out, that you relax on page 30 and redefine the goal. See yourself as the person you want to be. Now, number 8 cassette in your program is for you to fill in. You read number 8 cassette, the audio cassette, it says your own narration of your affirmations, commitments, and your goal. Now, do you see, the old conditioning or habit would cause you to just leave that there and not bother putting it on tape. But consider this. You take your voice, it's a voice you trust. Your mind is used to your voice. You write down your affirmations, you write out your commitment, and you write out your goal in the present tense, and put as much feeling as you can as you record it. And you play this cassette every day. I want to suggest that you use this program of yours that you've invested in every day. Get your friends involved in it. Get your family involved in it. And you're going to find that your life will never be the same again. You can have the things you want, all of them, and you will have them by incorporating these messages into your life. Momentarily, I'm going to introduce you to an excellent idea that John and I conceived some time ago, and we will be bringing to your doorstep before too long. It's a magnificent set of books. It's called the Torchbearer Series. And you're going to find that they can help you along with this program. Review the program often. Complete the exercises. Wear it out. You'll be so far ahead. Now sit back, relax, and mentally come back into the seminar as we tie this all up.
I used a quotation a little earlier with Paul Hutsey. And I was telling you about these pins, about the torchbearer. John and I are preparing a magnificent idea. This is a leather-bound book with gold edges. It's got the torchbearer logo on it. And on the side here, it's got the torchbearer symbol, As a Man Thinketh, by James Allen. Now, that's a bonus book with our series. I know that some of you are going to want these, but you can't have them yet. You're not ready. But when they are, you'll hear about them. And we want to get everybody locked into this idea about being a torchbearer. Let me repeat that quotation again. Roosevelt said, "Only those are fit to live who do not fear to die. And none are fit to die who have shrunk from the joy of life. Both life and death are parts of the same great adventure. All of us who provide service and stand ready for sacrifice are the torchbearers. We run with the torches until we fall, content if we can pass them to the hands of the other runners. If you want to experience real joy in your life, you follow the advice in that quote. Be a torchbearer. Pass on something good. Give up something so you can. And you'll always get more back so you can pass on more of something good." Now, what we've done is create a set of books. And I'm going to get John just to take a second. They're a beautiful set of books, and they're the complete set. They're going to be classics. They're ideas that have been passed down through the ages. We're putting them together. And like I said earlier, we've got license to brag about all this because none of it's ours. It's just something we've collected from some of the greatest authors and the greatest thinkers in the world. There are 12 different subjects. I can get John just to run over each one of them.
This is not necessarily in the order of importance, but one of them is called confidence. The entire book is written on one subject, and it's called confidence. You just read them this way. Then there's a book on courage, perhaps one of the most important things. The next book is on decision. In other words, making a decision and how to make or to improve your decision-making ability. This one I particularly like. It's called Responsibility. The next one is entitled Receiving. And then the rest, number one, is giving. I believe Robert just covered that very, very well. Of course, one that I'm sure you'll all identify with is attraction, the law of attraction. Robert? This one is on satisfaction. Very important idea as far as understanding what it really means. And of course, a big one, and perhaps the biggest, is called faith. To tie in with faith is one entitled Belief. And I believe what makes everybody a torchbearer, and is the reason that I'm here today, is this one called persistence. Persistence. I'm kind of proud of these books. I know Robert is, as a lot of other people are. But that's the torch that he just spoke about, and we'd like to see everybody become a torchbearer. Now, I'm going to ask, where is Debbie, Randy, Gina, Shirley, Donna? Do you want to come down here, please? Now, these are the people that work directly in the office and make this company really work. What you see Bob and I doing is a very small part of what these people do. But there's one person that heads this company up, and believe me, I have a respect for a lot of people, but in a business sense and management sense, you're not going to meet one like Linda Proctor, our president. Leslie, Colleen. Now we'd like the people who really make the company work now. We'd like them all to come down here. These are the people who are out in the ditches, digging the ditches every day, who are out talking to people and dealing with, you could say, our program every day, and who actually make it work and are the ones really responsible for not only you being here, but we being here. And we want to bring all those people down now that work with you and brought you here and that help us so very, very much, that are the most important people in our company. The most important people in our company, with one exception, other than you. Other than you. So we would like them all to come down and to join us on the platform. And I'd like you to give them all a big hand as they come down here. Ontario. We're right across this country now. So what we would like to do is, Bob is going to wind this up by thanking you so very, very much, and finishing with what this program is really all about in a simple poem.
You know, I'd like to add to John's remarks and thank these people, because they are really the ones that support us. They do the hard work. The people, the Marines, the ones that are out on the beach. All these people work with us full time. They're out there and they're giving it everything they've got. There's a number of other people that are not here, unfortunately, today. They're off somewhere else, because we have people in many different areas. But as we bring this in for a landing, what I would like you to do now is focus on yourself. There's a beautiful poem in the book, You Were Born Rich, and it's a poem that I fell in love with many years ago. Leland Bell Vanderwall was the first one to share it with me. And in that poem, he said, every single blade of grass and every flake of snow was just a wee bit different. There's no two alike, you know. From something small like grains of sand to each gigantic star, each one was made with this in mind, to be just what they are. How foolish then to imitate, and how useless to pretend, when each one of us comes from a mind whose ideas never end. Do you know there'll only be just one of me to show what I can do? And likewise, you should feel very proud that there's only one of you, because that's where it all starts, with you, a wonderful, unlimited human being. I want to thank all the crew that have been here. They've been working diligently now for the 2 days that you've seen them, but they were in here at 6 o'clock on Friday night, and they haven't really stopped since then. I guess they've had a couple of hours off to sleep when we weren't here, but they did a lot of work after we left, and they were certainly working a long time before we arrived. There's a crew out in the truck, and they're monitoring every shot that's being taken. And I'm going to tell you, this is going to be a beautiful set of tapes. I know I'm going to be very proud of them, just as everybody in our company is. I want to thank you very much for coming. I want to thank them for the great job they've done. And I want to thank you for purchasing the tapes, because you're the customer and you're the boss. You're the one that keeps us going in the right direction. Make certain that you use these over and over and over again. Again, thank you very much.